18th, and it's 7:16. Sorry for the delay, and we'd like to welcome you to this special regular meeting. If we can go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mayor Travis Mitchell and Mayor Pro Tem Bearheiser are not here this minute, so we're going to go ahead and State Secretary, please call roll.
Mitchell, Heiser, Medina,
Present.
Zapata,
Present.
Harris,
Here.
McKinney,
Here.
Tobias.
Present. We have a quorum of 5 present here. Second item up is for approval of the minutes. If anybody would like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so move to
Approval
make,
of the draft of the special meeting, the draft of this 6P special meeting, draft of the regular, draft of the 11:20 special meeting, 12:02 special meeting, and draft of the 12:02 regular meeting.
okay. Motion was made to approve the meeting by Councilmember Dr. Harris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Mark McKinney. Those, have anybody for discussion on those? Those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those up and don't, nay. Okay, approved 5-0. Okay, third item up for the agenda item is going to be citizens' comment period. The City Council welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of the City Council meeting. Those wishing to speak are encouraged to sign in before the meeting begins. Speakers may be provided an opportunity to speak during this time, any agenda item or matters concerning city business, and please observe the 3-minute time limit. I have quite a few here, so let me go and go with the first one. Okay, first I have Miss Daphne Tenorio.
Good evening, Council. Daphne Tenorio, Hayes County Treasurer, as well as former City Council member for the City of Kyle in Place 6. I'm coming to speak to you in regards to 2 item numbers, which are item number 20 and item number 21, possible consideration and approval of a resolution of interlocal agreement between the City of Kyle, Hayes County, and the City of Buda, as well as the approval of a resolution authorizing the design of the Kyle City Animal Care Facility. I'm asking that you consider pushing these items off until the next agenda when you have seated your new mayor and your other city council member. These items are looking at close to $100 million when you look at the $70 million projected cost of the county building, as well as the $30 million projected cost of the facility for the animal shelter. Because of the expenses, I urge you to consider allowing your new members to be seated and having a voice at the table. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tenorio. Next, I have Carol Delgado. Yes, Dogan. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Carol Dogans, and I live in the Kyle ETJ area. I'm here tonight to speak about the recent vote to increase water rates for residents outside of the city limits. First, I want to acknowledge the difficult work you do in balancing the budget, infrastructure needs, and the community growth. Water is essential, and I understand the pressure of maintaining a reliable system. But I also want to highlight the impact this decision has on families like mine who live just beyond the city boundaries. Residents in the ETJ already face unique challenges. We contribute to the local economy, shops and cow businesses, and support the community, yet we don't have the same representation or voting rights as city residents. When rates are increased disproportionately for ETJ household, it feels like we're being asked to shoulder more of the burden without having a voice in the process. The increase is not just a line item. It's a real strain on working families, retirees, veterans who already are managing rising costs for housing, food, and utilities. For many of us, every dollar counts. A higher water bill means trade-offs in other essentials. I urge the council to consider 3 points. Number one, equity. ETJ residents should not be penalized simply because of geographic. Fairness means rates that reflect actual service costs, not boundaries. 2, transparency, clear communication about why ETJ rates differ from city rates help build trust. Many of us feel left out of the conversation. Third, collaboration. Explore ways to include ETJ residents in advisory roles or community forums. Even if we can't vote in city elections, our voices matter. I ask you to revisit this decision, or at the very least, commit to a process that ensures ETJ residents are heard and treated equitably in future rate discussions. We want to be partners in the Kyle growth, not outsiders paying more for the same essential services. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Larry Gulick.
Good evening, council members. My name is Larry Gulick. I am a city water and wastewater customer in the Six Creeks development. The issue I'm raising is not about revisiting past decisions or assigning fault. It concerns a known discrepancy between a recorded development agreement and the manner in which a specific group of customers is being billed. These residents deserve to be heard by this council. It's entirely possible that this discrepancy arose unintentionally or through administrative oversight. If that's the case, it is precisely the type of issue that should be corrected once identified. However, once the city has been placed on notice of a potential conflict in its billing practices by a governing agreement, continued inaction carries consequences that extend beyond internal administration and move the issue to regulatory and legal forums outside of the city's control. You have or will soon have full authority to acknowledge this discrepancy, direct staff to correct billing classifications, and establish a fair and orderly process to address any overpass billing. Taking these steps does not require agreement with every argument residents have raised. It requires only recognition that the city entered into a binding agreement and that its provisions must be applied as written. Many of us are hopeful that this council or the coming council will approach this matter not as a controversy, but as an opportunity to align current city practice with city commitments and to reduce future regulatory or legal risk. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Courtney Goza.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Goza. I am the council member-elect for District 1, and I'm coming here tonight to ask you all to consider tabling the more extensive items, such as the contracts that we're going to be signing, the pet shelter, all of those types of things. They are going to be a huge part of the shaping of what happens in Kyle's future, and I believe that the two people that were just elected in deserve an opportunity to be able to give our input on those items and to be able to have a vote in those. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael McDonald.
Good evening. My name is Michael McDonald. I want to congratulate the 3 new council members and our new mayor who won their respective races. Thanks for all those people who voted. In order to make their transition smoother and easier, I'm asking for the following changes. All agenda items that have the following verbiage to be tabled. Authorizing the city manager to execute items 9 through 15. all agenda items that are requesting funding at this time. Items 6, 7, 8, 15, 16, 18, and 21. These items do not need to be rushed and passed without giving the new council members and mayor to familiarize themselves with all these agenda items so they know what they are voting for. Our city is in a crisis. 70,000 people that live in Kyle, and we just had a $600 million budget dropped in our laps. Water rates increases, wastewater rates increase. Almost all city fees have gone up. Can we afford more debt? Don't we already have enough? Table all the funding request agenda items until we can afford them. And now is not the time to add more debt to the citizens of Kyle. Council members, listen to the people you represent, the Kyle citizens. Please consult the City of Kyle organizational chart and put the citizens of Kyle over any special interest groups, because we are the people you represent. Thank you.
Next, we have Stephanie McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Tobias and members of council. I usually type everything up. I was at the airport till late today. I want to begin by saying, echoing what everybody else said, not everybody, but several people said they'd like to see items tabled until at least 2 weeks from now to allow our incoming members of council to be able to be a part of the discussion and the decision making. Thank you so much. Also, we do spend a small fortune on plans. We paid $1 million for a plan for a park that I don't know if we still have the plan. It may be in a janitor's closet somewhere. I don't know where it is, but that's a lot of money to throw away. On today's agenda, item number 16, which is the roundabout at Old Stagecoach and Center Street, we're looking at removing the slip lane. I don't know if I understand this correctly. Is it that the bid for redesigning this is almost $414,000, almost $500,000 to redesign it? Because it was originally, from what I understand, designed without the slip lane. Then it got changed to the slip lane, and I met with City Manager Brian Langley. I met with the Pape Dawson people, with the HOA, with concerned citizen that was going to drastically affect her property and her quality of life. And we were told adamantly that it had to have the slip lane. Now the slip lane is going to be removed, and it sounds like we're going to pay $414,000 for it to be redesigned. And I don't know why they wouldn't use the first set of designs that didn't have the slip lane, because they showed several, I think at least two maybe, designs. Anyway, I would like to see that pulled to the top of the agenda just so that could be discussed. We watched a council meeting online of it was just a special one for the roundabouts, and we saw aerial views of all the roundabouts, and most all the roundabouts you could see land around them. This one looks like someone was trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. It just didn't fit. It's just not a place. My husband designed intersections for a few decades, and this does not need a roundabout. It's just not a good spot for it. It does need a 4-way stop instead of a 5-way stop, which they're going to correct, but it needs a signal. And we probably could have already had the signal, everything in place for less than we've spent on this intersection already, and we haven't even begun work on it. So we're just in the design phase still. So anyway, I would like you all to consider those things, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Lauren Fay.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Foy. I am the executive director for PALS, Pet Prevent and Litter of Central Texas, the leading animal nonprofit organization here for Hays County and Kyle. I totally just am here to encourage this council to push forward with the new animal shelter here in Kyle, because I'm here to speak for the animals themselves. I understand that it is respectful to wait for people who haven't been able to sit and get updated on all that's already been going on for so long, but unfortunately there is a time frame. You guys do know that you're supposed to be out of the city of San Marcos Regional Animal Shelter by September, and the clock is ticking. Even if you started construction tomorrow, you're not going to be ready. And they are not promising you that they'll keep those animals past that unless you show that there is good faith effort, that your plan is in development, and that it is going to go through, and you need to have that in place. Because without that, the city is just going to kick Kyle out, and then what's going to happen to those animals? This is a good plan. It's been already vetted. And it even if you want to change things, just pushing it through to this next phase at least is getting more action for this situation that's huge that y'all are building to start taking place, because you're going to run out of time. And I'm here to make sure that the animals have a voice and that they're not going to be on the streets because we want to drag our feet for just semantics, or like time-wise. We just need to go ahead and move forward. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak, please? Thank you, sir. If you, again, just make sure we turn in the paper into the city secretary if you got it. Hello. Yes, sir.
Before we start, before the clock starts,
Mr. Larry Stampo.
I'm Larry Stamps, I'm sorry.
Stamps.
Before the clock starts, can we get the camera a different lens? Because every time I come up here, it makes me look fat. Please put that on the next agenda item. I'm here tonight to talk to you real quick about the budget coming up that's on the agenda tonight and moving forward. I agree with probably everybody except for one. We need to postpone any decisions on the budget right now, simply because if we don't, you're going to saddle the next council, which the two who are currently scheduled to join this body, and you're going to saddle the entire council with an extreme amount of debt. And we need to go through that budget and make sure that the right expenditures are done, the right planning has been done, and make sure that the citizens who you all serve as stewards of our money, make sure we get our money's worth. If we don't get our money's worth, we're just throwing money away, obviously, but we're not going to benefit from it. And isn't that what this body is supposed to do, is help the citizens and help this town? If we're not, then we all might as well just go home and pay our taxes and keep our mouths shut. I'm not going to do that. You already know that. But like for the roundabout, we just talked about, why are we doing that? I honestly don't understand why there's such a big need for a roundabout, but because they're not really much safer than 4 ways or 5 ways, or 3 ways for that matter. So I would ask you to carefully reconsider. If you plan on voting for this tonight, I would ask you to carefully reconsider and keep the citizens and this town first and foremost before anything else. Because if you don't, history is going to dictate what you voted tonight. And that burden is going to be felt by us moving into the new year. And we're going to remember that. You guys won an election. Congratulations. You guys are up for election. Think about it. I mean, I'm not threatening anybody. All I'm saying is we have woken up as a community, and we're only gonna get louder, I think. I really do. So again, careful consideration. I respectfully ask for you all to do that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you all. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come and speak? Hey, good to see you.
Council members, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of being up here to address you. My name is Vic Allen. I live in Kyle. As I had stated in the earlier session, I think that if there's one message that City Council should acknowledge, it's that the recent election showed you how fed up the citizens of Kyle really are. Okay? Now, who's that a reflection on? Okay? The old guard is no longer, and you can't honestly raise taxes and water rates just because you have the authority to do so. Talking about water rates, clearly every document that is before the Utility Commission documents the commitment that the city made to Six Creeks. I seriously doubt that this contract was given and part of the Raftella study. I would bet that it was more than just an oversight. The PID bonds that state and restate numerous times that the water commitment for Six Creeks mirrors that of the ICL was signed by Mayor Mitchell not once, but 7 times. The signature is a commitment to acknowledge the understanding of the document in its entirety. It's the commitment of the city of Kyle that you made to us. Like it or not, at the time those commitments were made, it was in the best interest of the city. You can't change horses in midstream, but you need to man up to your agreements. At this point, you have no options, regardless of the narrative that you have been led to believe, but to make Six Creeks whole and to declare the water rate study void. That seems like somebody was sold a box of rocks. So I hope that you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Thank you.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I wanted to just say my name is Ruben Becerra, and I serve as the county judge. And I'm here just to offer support in regard to your ILA agenda item. We tabled it as a commissioner's court this morning. I prompted it, and I was grateful to have gotten the support because as a community is speaking here, they spoke to me. I'm always available and on the ground, and so I'm receiving the communications as well. And so we did that for the community's sake and for your body. But if you have any questions as to more articulation of details, I am sitting here exclusively for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close citizens' period comment. Next, we're going to have agenda order. Is there anybody on the dais that'd like to bring up anything after we have consent? We don't have. I think we only have just 3 items. But anything else? No. Okay. Now we're moving on to agenda item number 5. It's going to be reports and presentations. So item number 3, we're going to receive a report and hold a discussion and provide staff direction regarding the Kyle Mobility Plan. And that'll be the presenter, Mike Trimble, Director of Transportation and Public Works. Mr. Trimble.
Good evening, Mike Trimble, Director of Transportation Public Works. Tonight I'm here with Jake Gutenkust, our consultant with the Goodman Corporation, to provide an update on our Kyle Mobility Plan. And just a little bit of context, Kyle Mobility Plan is our new transportation plan effort. Council approved us moving forward with this last spring, and so they are busy and in the middle of doing their work. We actually anticipate bringing the draft recommendations and the draft plan back to council later this spring in 2026. But what we want to do tonight is give you an update on where we're at with the work and get some of your feedback. Also talk about the community engagement that we've had associated with this, some of the analysis, and then also some of the next steps and what lies ahead as we move into 2026. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jake Gutenkust.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, council. Good to see everybody again. As Mike said, I'm going to kind of walk through where we're at in this process and just kind of reiterate, we're going to be back in the spring to talk a little bit more about recommendations. So we will be back in a few months. In terms of the project, I know we have a new council member tonight that wasn't here for the last discussion about this. And so I wanted to cover what is even a transportation plan, kind of rehash that a little bit. So really this document last formally redone in 2021, I'll cover that in a second, really establishes the vision for the long term for when the city and the ETJ fully builds out. It tells you where future thoroughfares are going to go, potential policies to look at, and things like the UDC, which you'll hear about later in the code, and potential projects to implement down the line. And so a lot of that effort back in 2021 resulted in the 2022 bond, and so we're looking at things for what's next in the next 5 to 10 years as part of this process. The other thing that we really want to make sure we do well, and it's a big focus at this time, is to make sure that the change in development since 2021 is addressed, and that we've got adequate infrastructure for that, and that it's all aligned well. And also because you had a new comp plan in the 2030 Kyle plan, we want to make sure we're aligned with that future land use plan and what's going on right now to make sure that you're getting enough right of way for the future to serve all those new residents and new communities and businesses. We're doing a lot of effort to look at the next set of projects, make sure they meet community priorities. I'll talk about what we heard in the first phase of engagement in a minute. And then a lot of what this does is it informs really future investments and future development requirements. We've got a long list there, but I'll get into some of that later. The last time that this was comprehensively redone and looked at holistically from like a goals, visions, things like that was 2016. 2021 was really a minor update to make some changes to the map, identify some projects for the bond that happened the year after, and didn't go through that really detailed community process like we're doing this time. So that's where we're back now. We're renaming it to the Kyle Mobility Plan to acknowledge the desire for it to really be representative of all modes of transportation, not just driving, but also walking, biking, and other ways to get around. So we're covering all that as part of this. I think this slide got in here. Oh, yep. So for previous council action, we started this, we came to be, we were selected to Goodman Corporation back in April of 2025. And then we had our kind of first update on where we were headed with engagement. That was in the middle of the first phase of engagement in July. I'll cover a little bit more about the results of that in a minute. So we've been doing this for about 8 months now. In terms of the draft vision statement, we presented this back at the July council meeting and worked on this with staff and city management office. But just to kind of read it off, the current vision for this plan is for Kyle to be the undisputed regional leader in vehicular, pedestrian, and multimodal mobility. The Kyle Mobility Plan establishes proactive strategies to address congestion, safety, and provide travel options for a thriving community. This was developed in concert to really reflect the Kyle 2030 plan to make sure that they're in alignment. But a really key word here I think that's going to drive a lot of what we do is being proactive going forward. How do we get ahead of problems and address them before they become bad or worse? We're in the middle of the process. We've been doing a lot of work in the background analysis, as Mike mentioned when he introduced me. We're going to be coming back in the spring with recommendations and some stuff to really get our hands on with the community and with y'all on what we found and what we're recommending to change going forward in Kyle. As far as that first phase of engagement, we had that open for just about 2 months. Between June and August, we wanted to make sure it was not just a summer engagement, but also carried into the school year. So that was intentional by design, the length of that period. We had a lot of in-person engagement at different things like market days at the senior zone. We went to City Fest and movies in the park and really met with a lot of different people and did one-on-one conversations. We had well over 600 surveys and map comments. We were pretty happy with that result. That's a lot of plans that I've done personally. We have a hard time breaking 300 or 400, so I think we almost doubled that in a lot of comparative size communities to y'all. So kudos to folks for showing up and showing out and giving their voice. We did attach, I believe, to this agenda item kind of a summary of what we heard in more detail, but kind of just quick themes for that. Safety came up a lot in the comments, both for people in cars that are having car crashes or witnessing near misses or car crashes on y'all's roads, or a lot of tech stop facilities rather, was really thematic along that too. And then also safety for pedestrians. There were a couple places where things were mentioned about road repairs, potholes, or just rough driving conditions. That was a theme that came up. And then really a big focus was improvements to intersections, whether it was a roundabout, traffic lights, turn lanes, all the sorts. So a whole gamut of different things for that around town. Something else that we wanted to be really clear about is we're not doing this in a vacuum. We really are working to try to work with lots of other agencies and neighboring cities for that matter. We want to make sure that this plan doesn't just stop at some jurisdictional boundary, but it's coordinated with other cities. One of the things that's been really fruitful from that already is in coordination with Hays County, San Marcos, Buda, and Campa for that matter, there's been a lot of discussion kind of about the west and the east side and making sure that all the planning efforts that are going on are in alignment. In fact, City of Buda is finishing a transportation plan of their own right now. They're about to looking to adopt that pretty soon, if not already. San Marcos is starting one, and Hays County has informed us that they're also going to probably be starting one in the next year or so. They're looking to do that. So we're in a great spot right now for regional coordination to make sure that things that are identified and for regional benefit or working together, it's a really great opportunity that's unique for this area of Central Texas along 35. we've had a lot of discussions with them about their projects and potential future funding partnerships as well as part of that effort. We've got a couple upcoming deliverables. I want to give kind of just a preview of what you're going to see when we come back. This is the current thoroughfare plan, very small. I'm not expecting you to read it off the screen. But a couple things that we're really working on is making sure that this effort dovetails nicely with the UDC code updates. We wanted to make sure those talk to each other and that they're aligned well, especially when it comes to things like right-of-way and what's required in the right-of-way. And we'll be looking at intersection recommendations and updates for those as well and getting into detail on some of those. Roadway sections, this is what the current ones look like in the 2021 plan, very engineering, not super multimodal in terms of what's shown on there. So we're gonna really revamp those. The other big thing we're looking at is not just having a cross section that's not cognizant of what's next to it on the land. You don't want to stop your planning at the right-of-way line. You want to make sure it interacts well with the developments next to it. So these will be context sensitive, whether they're rural, open ditch sections, if they're in urban environments like downtown where you've got buildings right up to the right-of-way line, and considering things like that as part of the design process and what we're looking at. The other thing we're looking at is kind of what's that next set of projects once the 2022 bond is done. We know that's still in progress. There's projects in construction and design, but we're trying to think long-term here as part of this plan. So what's that next set of priority projects we'll be looking at? In terms of the next phase of engagement, we're gonna have a lot of opportunities for that. We're gonna have the same online opportunities for folks that don't wanna come out and meet with us. We're gonna have pop-up meetings again at different events around town, just like we did last time. I think we had 5 or 6 of those. And we're gonna have kind of a big open house public meeting for this one as well, for the community to come give us feedback. A big goal that we want to honor that we talked about with folks during the first phase that we're kind of keeping as a North Star here is really kind of talking about how the recommendations lines up with what we heard from the community. So when we come back with recommendations, we want to talk about where we heard those comments, kind of how those things came about, and also show the technical reasons for why we recommend those. With that, I'll stop and we can ask questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for our presenter? Councilmember Zapata.
Well, if someone else wants to go first, because I have quite a few. So.
Okay. Anybody on this side? No. Okay. Good.
Okay. So thank you so much for this presentation. One thing that I am very passionate about is displacement. And this entire rewrite is extremely important into being kind of that first stop to make sure that we aren't unintentionally displacing people, even unintentionally displacing people. It's something that we have to be cognizant of. So I think my first question is going to be, have we worked with Housing Works at all in regards to our housing assessment that's being done? Because I did not see that mentioned.
Yeah, so far we have not, but I'll work with Mike and staff and we can definitely coordinate with that team, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just want to make sure that a lot of that same data is being cross-referenced in both plans.
Yeah, absolutely. We can reach out to them and do more coordination with Housing Works and any housing study or housing assessment that's being done. Do have some experience of this in my former life working at City of Austin. When we prioritized some of the projects in our 2016 bond, we actually looked at displacement patterns or opportunities to preserve affordable housing along the various corridors. And so we do have experience, particularly as we start to prioritize what investments to make for any future CIP. We can look at those types of factors as well.
Okay. I think beyond the congestion and crash data, what variables are currently weighted in the project prioritization framework?
Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of different things. The short answer is that's still in development. It's not set in stone yet. Some of the things that we're looking at in addition to safety and congestion relief is things like access to different types of facilities. So what are these projects going to be in proximity to? Is it close to schools? Is it close to the library? Is it close to grocery stores, housing developments, other community services? So are they actually helping connect people to destinations that matter? That's going to be a big part of what we're looking at for this too. We're also going to be looking at things like feasibility. So projects, especially when you're looking at mobility or transportation, we want to make sure we're really looking at the impacts in terms of property, right-of-way, utilities, things like that. So the feasibility of these will also be really important and kind of when we're evaluating how hard are they to do and making sure that we're not leaving any rocks unturned. And then the other thing we want to make sure, I mentioned it kind of at the end there, is we really will be taking into account the public comments that we've gotten and using that to really look and see, are these projects publicly supported? based on what we heard from the community in both phases of engagement. So those are all going to factor in.
Okay, is it possible that aside from, I think, the connectivity and the feasibility, that we also include some equity variables in there as well? Just taking into consideration things like car ownership rates, renter concentration, income amounts, just to be sure that we are actually addressing, some of the issues with displacement prior to it, I guess, increasing.
Short answer is yes, and we actually have done that before in other frameworks, so there's lots of good data out there.
All right, perfect. And then I think my next question is, how are roadway cross-sections evaluated to determine whether they reduce car dependency versus simply accommodating higher vehicle throughput more efficiently?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what I will say is the actual car dependency piece really depends on a lot of other things outside of just the roadway cross section. But the most basic thing is whether or not, I kind of showed that picture earlier, I'll go back to it, of this doesn't really show you other modes of transportation super well. There's kind of a really narrow sidewalk and there's not much detail. Like, does it have lighting or street trees or things like that that actually help bike and pedestrian facilities be more usable? In Texas, it's hot. You want to have, and at nighttime, can you actually use it, or do you not feel safe, right? So there's things like that will go into the newer cross sections that'll definitely kind of speak to those things. But to really look at reducing car dependency, that's a whole other program of stuff that's lumped under a term called transportation demand management, and that really gets into things like amenities at either end of your trip, policies like things like teleworking and other stuff to kind of really help reduce that, and then really just how accessible and comfortable those other types of travel are to the community.
Okay, is there a way in which we could possibly include some metrics to kind of, I think, not only measure things, because I think one of the other questions that I asked is, are we tracking baseline mode share? And I think the answer is yes, and that data is still currently being developed or established. Yes. But I think it's important that not only that we are taking into consideration those metrics, but are also tying outcomes to those metrics. And so I would like for us to include some of those outcomes that look at that car dependency versus car efficiency for future planning.
That's great feedback, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and what formal criteria will Kyle use to determine when projects must exceed TxDOT minimum multimodal standards?
So it's a great question, and part of this process, we're really going to try to work on defining city-specific criteria for those, so it's not relying upon an outside agency like a TxDOT when they change their standards. They just changed their design standards last year, by the way, in 2024. So there'll be city-specific ones that meet the other goals and objectives of the city as part of this process that we'll define.
Okay, and are there going to be triggers that will make that happen so that we know, and it's not necessarily a case-by-case basis or discretionary, but that it's actually written into code that if it meets this, then it triggers that?
Yes, so that's part of what we want to talk about with the code team, who I know they've got a presentation on their diagnostic, but we are working in tandem with them and across city departments to make sure that these things are lined up.
Okay, and I think on a similar note, is there a policy mechanism to protect multimodal elements from being treated as discretionary or value engineered out?
Yes, that's definitely a policy decision for this group. I'll say, I know there's different strengths of policies. One of the ones that often can be complicated is fee in lieu policies, for example. When those exist, it allows for payment of money without actually building infrastructure, and so looking through the code and seeing if those exist, how they're used, and if that's actually preventing things from getting built. But also kind of tying, requiring these multimodal improvements to be built when you build roadway capacity enhancements or other types of improvements could be a policy. Mike, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that is one of the conversations we've been having as we've been talking about how to approach the cross sections. The cross sections really is the meat of that, is how do you design those to make them multimodal? You're accounting for pedestrian, you're accounting for bike, you're accounting for vehicles, and how do they all play together in that template? And so what we've been talking about is having configurations that are flexible, that can evolve over time. So as the city develops, we keep them multimodal, but they can also evolve. So for example, maybe creating a larger median where we may not need as many lanes, and then over time, as we need more capacity, we shrink those in, we maintain our sidewalks and our bike facilities, but we get some additional vehicle capacity. So in other words, flex space basically for roadways. And so we're talking about building that kind of capacity into our planning for these cross sections. And so things like that, and what I've been really excited about to have these conversations, I think will allow us to do some of that planning forward on how do we maintain multi-mobility, but also try to accommodate what's coming from the growth and development anticipated for Kyle.
Okay. Is there a way in which we can kind of set, if for example, if we didn't want to take the route where we create a policy that like multimodal elements are required, which that doesn't seem like the route that we want to go, but is there a way to set any sort of minimum so that way at bare minimum it has to meet X, Y, or Z multimodal standards? Because what I don't want to do is create a flexible policy in which it allows a developer to kind of say, well, actually, this doesn't work for us, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think what we can do as part, and Jake, you may have some examples, because I know you've done a lot of this type of work in other jurisdictions, but we can also look at maybe some other examples where maybe there similar policies have been put in place, and maybe just bring that to you as some of these types of policies, getting to that, having some multimodal kind of basic standards for multi-mobility have been put in place in other jurisdictions.
Yeah, I'll say that sometimes when you define a minimum, it's a double-edged sword. And what I mean by that is, from experience, if you have something that you're actually wanting to go for, and then you say, well, you can't go below this, a lot of times the tendency is to push towards the minimum. And so sometimes we have clever ways we can work through that, where we kind of speak to, you must meet, for example, for a sidewalk, you have to meet ADA standards, or this is the minimum, or things like that, where it's less specific to work towards a minimum, but more of, this is what we want, and oh, you also have to meet this. And so there's clever ways to kind of get through that. But there's lots of strategies and different approaches to it, and we can kind of certainly have those conversations.
Okay, I think at minimum, it's something that concerns me, especially around school zones. If that's something that we're not requiring around our school zones, it puts our children in danger. And I think that's some of the issues that I'm hearing from residents in regards to some of the roundabouts. And so I just want to make sure that that's taken into consideration in particular.
Definitely.
And then I think one of the other questions I had has to do with the survey responses. I think as a part of the survey responses, we have an area where we specifically identify that I think that survey data shows that grocery stores and pharmacies are kind of some of the most frequent destinations. However, one thing that I notice is that the medical travel is actually really low. And I'm just curious, and this is just like shooting off the cuff, if staff thinks that that actually speaks to like a bigger barrier to access, or if we just don't have that many medical facilities in the first place. Because if people are using it to get to grocery stores, then it's assumed to me that they're trying to obtain their basic needs, and that's what people are mostly traveling around the city for. But there is like a drastic percentage difference between that and the medical kind of transportation. So I just wonder if that speaks to any other barriers that we might not be aware of.
I think it's hard to infer that from a survey data set like that. What I do think that the survey can tell us at least is when we're looking at projects like I talked about earlier with the access and the connectivity pieces, hey, we are hearing from the community we really need to prioritize connecting to these places. It doesn't mean we're not going to connect to medical, right? But kind of those next level inferences are kind of hard to determine just from the raw percentage, but we can look in the comments to see if there's more details about that.
Okay, and then I think one of my last questions, maybe my last question, for the prioritization rubric that we're creating, will pedestrian and bicycle safety be weighted equally with vehicle throughput in these locations?
So that's something that we want to kind of come up with a first draft with staff on and come back and talk with you guys about kind of before we make a decision like this is the top projects, and kind of have that discussion about weights and how those things actually comparatively weigh out against each other. So those will be metrics that we'll bring back and say, here's a draft idea. What do you think? Do you want to tweak these up or down? And that'll be a future discussion.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all I got. So thank you for putting up with me.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Dr. Harris.
I just wanted to say thank you Councilmember Zapata. Those are wonderful questions, really help clarify some things in the study and give us a little bit more direction. Thanks.
Okay, yes, I looked at some of the feedback that you got from the residents, and it is important that we need to be able to get some of their feedback on some of these comments they had, like roads near high schools need improvement. Some residents were stating focus on downtown development, school lane safety, rideshare mobility for seniors, adding crosswalk technology, and so forth. There's one here that I saw that says need improvement at the bad intersection of Bunton and Philonema. Just about 2 days ago, I've already seen 4 accidents in that area, and there was a recent one not too long ago as you're turning in by that bread basket. And obviously, the second one says no more roundabouts. So, you know, just some people support it, and some people are saying, no, sir, we don't need that. So, but it's good that you take some of these these comments into consideration and so forth on that end. Dr. Harris?
And I also want to mention, and the question about medical comes up because the seniors have different needs sometimes than the general population. So are we looking at the ages of the respondents?
I'll have to go back and double check. I can't remember off the top of my head if that was one of the questions they identified their age. I think it was, but I don't want to speak incorrectly. We'll go back and look at that. I don't want to incorrectly state that. But I will say, I did mention it earlier, we did get to go and talk with the newly formed Board on Aging, and so we got to get some direct feedback from that group on specific needs of seniors and Kyle.
And CAS, you went to CAS.
Yes.
I think perhaps to answer the question about why the medical is so low, there are several reasons. The seniors would heavily utilize the medical transportation, but I think that they are using the door-to-door, the Uber contract very, very highly for medical. And I think also some of that is addressed through some of the senior facilities, like Orchard Park, that have their own transportation for their seniors. So that it may be that they're not seeing that as a need, although it's something that they frequently use.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Is there any kind of direction that you need from us, Mr. Trimble, as far as the direction?
No direction needed, but the questions and feedback tonight has been great, and we'll take that back and incorporate that into the process as we continue to work with the Goodman Corporation and Jake's team to develop the plan. And like I said, there'll be more community engagement opportunities, and then of course we'll be coming back. We'll go out to the community with those draft recommendations and ideas, and then we'll come back to you with everything that we've found, including additional community feedback for your consideration in the spring.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have one more thing.
One more.
Sorry. It would be, I would be remiss if I did not ask if we could do bilingual outreach on further engagement.
Yeah, short answer is yes. Yeah, we could definitely do translated materials, and we'll have folks on hand in person that can speak Spanish. So
good.
Thanks.
Good. Great questions, everybody. Good, good. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and move on to report presentations number 4. So let's receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff direction on the facilities master plan. Again, it'll be presented by Mike Trimble, Director of Transportation and Public Works.
Hello again. Mike Trimble, Director of Transportation Public Works. So tonight we have our team from HDR to talk to you about some of the findings of our first phase of our facilities master plan that we've been working on. And so, as you know, we are a growing organization, growing community, and so along with that comes facility and space challenges and needs. And so this first phase of this facilities master plan was really focusing on some of the space constraints and space needs related to the PSC and here at City Hall. And so Flint Britton with HDR will come up and talk about kind of what they found through their analysis, and then we'll talk about some of the next steps. And so tonight we just want to give you an update and give you some of those findings, get some of your feedback, and then we'll be going forward with some of those next steps. So with that, Flint.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. My name is Flint Britton. I'm with HDR. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here and let you know what we found as we went through the process. We were retained by the city to take a look at the next 5 years as far as your staffing needs and growth, and also the PSC and City Hall specifically, to see how that space that you have existing will accommodate that growth. And this is a phase one of a two-phase project. We also want to thank everybody that we met with. We met with over 20 different staff members. The city manager's office made themselves available, and so did all the leadership within the different departments. And we really appreciate the help that they gave us as we went through the programming effort and tried to figure all this out. Again, we're looking at 2025 to 2030 as the 5-year focus on the PSC and the City Hall. We met with all 10 departments: administration, transportation, public works, strategic development, finance, police, communications, parks and rec, talent and culture, city attorney, and information technology to find out what their needs might be. A couple of things that we did in order to accomplish this goal was to take facility tours through the PSC and the City Hall and just make notes about what we're seeing and what we're finding. And at one point, we actually had an opportunity to sit down with leadership and talk to them during the programming phase and ask them what you have, what you don't have, what do you need, and what are the results of maybe not having those spaces. Because as you grow, of course, those spaces are diminishing and have diminished. So we'll also get to a point where we actually benchmark some of the things that we come up with. The other thing is when we're going through, basically, and this isn't anything new, just about every city hall or town center we go through has the same sort of issues. You've got support spaces that were file storage or copy rooms, and now they're office spaces for staff. You've got loaded offices that maybe have designed for 1 or 2 people, and they have more folks in them than they were designed for. And of course, as you take those support areas, those things that were in those areas, like file storage, end up going elsewhere, maybe in the corridors or stairwells. It really not damages, but it actually diminishes the effectiveness of staff to be able to work. One of the things, a couple of things that we found was, when you're trying to make a personal phone call and you've got 3 people in an office area, where there maybe should be 1, that makes things difficult. Some of the folks said they had to go out of the office and go out into the hallway or go outside into the lobby to make a phone call. So there's a lot of different things that occur. The other thing is the space needs standards. Every city hall, every facility has space needs standards that they're built by, which basically indicates that if you're at this level, hierarchy level, you get a certain size office, as opposed to someone that may just be a receptionist. When you get so many people into a facility, those space standards go away. And it's just obvious. If you've got an office for 1 and you've got 3 people in it, there is no space needs standards that you're adhering to. Everyone knows the city of Kyle is growing tremendously, and your growth from 2000 to 2010 was 368%, which is just amazing. We believe that you're running about 68,795 population right now. And if you take the U.S. Census Bureau and you look at their numbers, they're going to have you basically up to 83,000. We took an average of 3 different projections from different agencies, and we believe your average in 2030 is going to be 77,830. So you're going to continue to grow without a doubt, and basically that comes out to about 2,500 to 2,900 people every year. At one point, you had 5,000 per year, so you've grown tremendously. When we started the programming phase, we actually went through some information that was provided by staff. We actually issued questionnaires just to ask them their opinions of what they have, what they don't have, and how they've been affected by the staff coming on board. We actually had staff meetings with everyone. We actually looked at the police needs assessment study that was done. And organizational charts helped out a lot as well. So we were able to go through there and begin to figure out who was coming on. We also looked at presentations about staff hires within the next couple of years. So all of that was used to go into the programming effort. And when we look at all the departments, And we're talking about staff in the next 5 years. And if we use that space department, needs department organization for office spaces, so that means that I'm giving you an office space of certain size so you can do your job. If we're looking at that, we actually come out with additional 25,000 square feet. That 25,000 square feet is the new staff that's coming on board and also those service spaces that they said that they might need. I know when we talked to finance said that they would like to have a counting room that's separated and secure. So part of that 25,000 would be that. A lot of folks said that there weren't enough conference rooms. So there was conference rooms that were added to some of the departments. So the 25,000 also includes that. So it's not just the office space alone. And those are all of the departments. If you look at just those that are using the PSC in City Hall, that means Parks and Rec is not in the PSC in City Hall, but everybody else is. I know Communications has some space at the Parks and Rec that they use. But if you look at those that are at the PSC and City Hall, you actually come out with 91 new staff over the next 5 years and a requirement for 21,760 square feet. Just call it 22,000. Now, you've got some facilities that are coming on, so that's going to be helpful. But what we're trying to do is we're looking at the PSC space, we're looking at the City Hall space, and saying how many of these folks that are new can we move into these spaces. And the only way that we can make all of this work for the next 5 years is that you continue to load office spaces, which means that you may have somebody that's in a space that's by themselves, and it might be 200 square feet. And if there's a possibility we can put 4 in there, then that's what we're going to have to do in order to get 5 years down the road for 91 folks, if that makes any sense. So in looking at the PSC and the City Hall, we found 6 different departments that shouldn't have any issues as long as you load up the spaces like we were talking about. And in the process, you'll probably have to move individuals around in order to get them closer to their departments or keep their departments together. The 3 that we didn't find is Transportation Public Works. Transportation Public Works has individuals coming on that's going to be difficult to place. But what's good is that you've got your new headquarters, in theory, coming on in the 3rd quarter of 2027, or 4th quarter of 2027, rather. So that should take care of Transportation and Public Works. And then strategic development, once Public Works moves out of the City Hall, we should be able to move strategic development into those open spaces and maybe even some finance in the finance department. But finance has 20 individuals that are coming on in the next 5 years. And when we look at the PSC and the City Hall, it's going to be very difficult to find spaces for everybody that's in finance that's new at this point. Parks and Rec, we didn't concern ourselves about because they're not in PSC City Hall. But when we did look at their programming, we recognized that they were also very close out of space for the folks that they've got coming on. So some of the options are you possibly find a building that's existing and you use that. You repurpose that building for your needs. When we ran the square footages, you need basically 30,200 gross square feet of building in order to get just those that are in the next 5 years. Option 2 would be to actually add on to this facility, add on to the City Hall. It'd be, again, a 30,200 square feet. It'd be a remodel renovation. You could actually come back into this space, remodel spaces as necessary, and have a brand new addition to the City Hall. The drawback to the option 1, of course, would be that when you go to a building that's existing, you'll be inheriting all the issues that might come with that building. The other option, or the other issue is when you go into an existing building, unless you do a total remodel, revamp, usually it's very difficult to get departments in the right place. It's difficult to get the right size offices. So you may be back into that situation where you're using as much of an office as you can, or even a storage space as you can in order to make things work. The last option would be to build a new city hall. And we did a high-level view of what it would cost to build a city hall and also the square footage. And you're looking at basically 64,000 square feet of building. Just to give you something to compare it to, right now, the city hall you're in right now is 17,000 square feet. So you're talking 4 times this facility in order to just take care of the staff you have now, plus the staff that will be coming on in the next 5 years. So our study stopped at 2030. The construction cost is estimated between $54 and $57 million. And project cost are all those other things that are on top of that. That's computers and furniture and all those other things. And those would come out to $65 million to $68.7 million. So that's sort of where we're at as far as the study. When we were actually retained, the initial idea was that we would actually take a look at the facilities that are existing and the properties that are existing and review and study all of those properties and actually take a look at the facilities that exist and grade them and bring that back to you and let you figure out which facilities you wanted to keep and which facilities needed to be raised or what facilities you could actually expand on possibly and reuse. We're doing the same thing for the city of Taylor currently, and that'll be done in January. By the time we're done, they'll have a 10-year CIP that they'll use. So we'll be able to tell them how long these buildings will last them, when they'll get started, so that should be coming to a close pretty soon. But we'll actually go through and we'll do the same sort of effort we've done already. Instead of doing a very high-level programming effort where we just looked at the next 5 years, we would be looking at a programming effort that takes you to the next 20 years. So if we begin to look at 20-year facility, it would be larger than the facilities that we just looked at for the city hall. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for the presenter? I think that's something that we've been talking about as far as the council, the growth that we are having, not only just our city, but for our city staff and our employees. I know when staff moved to the Public Safety Center, that was, I remember the terms were, that was just going to be temporary, but they've been there for a while. And I know as our police department's growing, I think we've been having those conversations about where our next step as far as finding facilities for our employees. So, Brian, if you have anything to add.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the presentation. I think to highlight some of the things you mentioned, Councilmember Tobias, as the police department continues to grow, that their demand for space will continue to grow, and eventually we will need to vacate that building for the administrative offices. We've tried to put some precision estimates around that. Those are all estimates, and they will change over time, but it just, the intent is to try to get an order of magnitude of kind of where we are, rather than the specific numbers. I can't tell you that we're going to add 91 staff members, but it's an estimate of something like that. We don't know exactly how many people will be here in 2030, what it will be the population. So it's an estimates of estimates, but hopefully it gives you an idea of where we're going to be. The other thing that I think we need to be thinking about is a council chamber as well. As the community continues to grow, we have large crowds, large numbers of people. As the population grows, you're going to need to look at what type of facility do you need to have for council meetings, court, all kinds of different activities that are occurring in the city. And is this the right facility for that? Or should it be a new facility? Those are things that we'll be talking about to try to come up with a plan to help us execute on that. I'd also like to consider a work session room for the city council when we have work session meetings regarding the budget or other topics. Those are typically different settings than the dais. We try to makeshift that a little bit sometimes when we do that with tables, but there are different ways to do that. They're easier to broadcast and easier for the public to attend. And those are things that can be looked at as well as the overall facility plan. But just lots of things to think about. We wanted to show you where we were in that process, and then ask if there's any feedback or other options you'd like us to consider as we bring back a completed project for you.
Councilmember Dr. Harris.
One of the things I'd really like to have considered with this, and you probably have, I just didn't hear it, is parking. If we expand here, the parking needs are tremendous. The PSC parking needs are tremendous there as well as the department there grows. The recreation, Parks and Rec facility, almost no parking. You know, if you have a meeting over there, you've got to really park in very strange places. So I think including that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other feedback? Okay, Councilmember Medina.
Just noticing on the considerations for the new staff build, new city hall, you're projecting a 2030 build, which is 5 years away, but you're projecting that in those 5 years, you could have another total of 146 extra staff maybe. Should we not be looking at 10 years down the line for something that we're not going to have built for another 5 years to accommodate the next 5 years of growth? But then by the time that 5 years gets here, that the building is built, we've already outgrown it before we moved into it, like the PSC?
Yeah, yes, ma'am, very much so. Yeah, we were tasked just to go the 5 years. But if we do this correctly and we look at the city hall, we'll be looking 20 years down the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McKinney.
It's one of the tough parts of the growing pains that we have to deal with. And, you know, like you said, these estimates that we're talking about is to potentially build a building that's already obsolete before we've even broken ground. That's that's pretty frustrating. So I know it's been tough on staff. I know a lot of them share offices. Some of them have even shared desks within shared offices. So it's definitely a need that we can't push too much further down the road. So I appreciate you bringing this to us.
Thank you.
So part of the plan then could be, here's what we're going to need. In 5 years, it will have grown out to this need. And how do we expand that facility? If we already have a plan for it, this would be phase 2, then that would be helpful.
Yes, yeah, and without a doubt, this next part would actually be phase 2. And we would actually be able to go back through there and get you some more specific ideas about actually when does the police, PSC, when do they move? When do they bring their staff on? How far do they go? How many spaces do we have left? So on stage 2, we can actually begin to figure all of that out as we do a deep dive.
Well, and after 5 years, what's the potential for expanding that facility? Can we go up? Can we go out? Can we?
Without a doubt.
Whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
Because at the end of 5 years, I mean, we may not be able to bond out 10 years worth of facility, but if we have a plan that we know in 5 years we need to be looking at that, and we've already said this is where we can go, that would help.
And that's what I was just going to add is that, yes, absolutely, as we look at, what capacity is going to be needed over time, we'd probably also be looking at the phasing of that.
Right.
As we look at these different options, how do you start to phase this in, because the dollars those are big numbers, and we get that. And so we'd have to look at how do we, judiciously phase these things out over time, as we're looking at 10, 15, 20 years. But also we can see where are we actually at in 5 or 10 years, and are we on that trajectory? Are we not? And so then we can also adjust. So I think having that flexible plan, a phased plan going forward, will give us those options.
Yeah. And by going through the properties that you have and the facilities that you have, maybe part of the solution is that you've got a new city hall but you repurpose some of the buildings that you've got that you might be able to add on to or just remodel, and, you know, hold on to that for a little while before you have to build more, you know, in the future. You know, take a break, if you want to put it that way.
Councilmember Zapata.
This is just like to entertain me. I know, Brian, you're not really fond of this idea, but how does telework change this? Because I know that when I was working at the state, when we switched over to telework, it was a huge cost savings measure because we didn't have to continue building facilities. We were able to end several leases that we had on different buildings throughout Austin. And so I'm just wondering, like, additionally, that's also a traffic reducing measure, especially for downtown here, if we're talking about trying to bring all those folks in and on the road. Is there a way in which we can look at having like administrative, non-public facing staff adopt some sort of telework policy in order to reduce the need for such a large facility like that? I'm not sure how the rest of council feels about that, open to feedback, but it's just something that I'm trying to throw around for cost savings measures.
I mean, we definitely can look at that. We do have an alternate work schedule policy that we have, and when there are opportunities from a work standpoint that it makes sense, we look at those with individual departments. But we could try to incorporate some of those projections for the growth of staff of what do we think could be potentially reduced, and what could be shared spaces with some telework staff. There are some positions, as we've talked about, that are great candidates for those, and others that are not. We're in that service business. We serve the public. So there's some that do and some that don't, but we can certainly give some more precision around that to help hopefully shave off some of the needs on the top end.
Okay, yeah, just wherever it is possible.
Yes.
I think I would appreciate just looking at what that looks like down the line.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Before we head to our next presentation, I know we have that. Would council have any objection if I move agenda item number 20 to 21 up front? As we have a crowd that's here to see that. No, no objection at all. Do you mind? Okay. All right, I'd like to go ahead and bring up agenda item number 20 and also 21. It'll be the consider approval of a resolution authorizing interlock agreement between the City of Kyle, Hayes County, City of Buda for participation in the City of Animal Care Facilities and Operations. This would be our Assistant City Manager, Jesse Espolito.
Good evening, City Council. I'm excited to be here tonight to present to you guys the resolution authorizing interlocal agreement between the City of Kyle, Hayes County, and the City of Buda for participation in animal care facility and operations. Before we get started, I just want to say a couple thank yous. This interlocal agreement represents a tremendous amount of time and effort and energy that has gone in, not only from this, and meetings that have gone in, not only from this council and internal staff at the City of Kyle, but also our colleagues at the county Commissioner's Court, as well as the county staff who has been tremendous in working with us, and as well as our colleagues at the City of Buda, the City Council, Mayor and City Council of Buda, and the staff at Buda. So just want to thank all of those participating parties and partners in getting all of this together. So we'll jump right in. I don't think it's any surprise to anyone, just in case, certainly not to this council, but in case anyone's watching that doesn't know, San Marcos Regional Animal Shelter is releasing its interlocal partners in 2026. Poor San Marcos, every presentation starts with that. And then we had in January, the City of Kyle, because we were responding to that information, we did a full feasibility study. That feasibility study finished in August, and then in August, the City of Kyle and Hayes County unanimously approved a memorandum of understanding to start to do some high-level evaluation of this ILA that's coming to you tonight. In October, Buda signed that same memorandum of understanding as well. The city's projected outlook for this is full design to be completed in 25 and 26, so that by the end of the fiscal year 26, and then to start construction in 26, 27, and have full construction and complete design by the end of 27, possibly early 28. There's a little preview concept that came from the feasibility study, concept of the building as well. Just some pretty pictures before we jump in. So after all of those MOUs went through, the different entities started working together to start formulating this much more specific, taking those high-level MOU points and putting them into legal language and specific interlocal agreement that is before you tonight. The interlocal agreement with the City of Kyle will retain, the City of Kyle under this interlocal agreement will retain full ownership and operational control of the facility, including staffing, policy, and budget management. We'll get into a breakdown on the next slide, but at a high level, you can see the location there off Daisy and Beebe. I won't go through these exact percentages, but you can read them. They're slightly different based on the capital and operations, but very similar. And then in the ILA, there's an outline for intake-based cost reevaluation, which means once the animal care facility gets up and running, we'll start evaluating based on all the data that's coming in of what the intakes are, and then every year evaluate what those operational cost breakdowns will be for each entity, as we should, right? We will also be standing up this year. It will come before this City Council for approval, an Animal Care Advisory Board. So all the specifics of that board, all the seats on it will come before this City Council for approval. That board will give recommendations to on operations and policies, partnerships, many different things that will come to the City Council for approval. So this will operate much like one of our, or as one of our boards and commissions. So just like our Parks Board gives recommendations to Council, Library Board gives recommendations, we will staff that with experts. Believe we'll have a veterinarian on that, as well as representatives from Hays County and Buda, and partners that are involved in the animal services around the region, so that they can look at many things that come before that board and give recommendations, which will ultimately come to City Council for approval. We will be standing that up in fiscal year 26, along with many other things on building the foundation of running this animal care facility. Overall, we've discussed this before. Overall, we believe this partnership truly enables all the entities to deliver a top-tier facility and operation that could not be achieved independently from any of us. And while we share costs, and we will greatly improve the regional animal care services in the region. So a little bit of a breakdown, and we can jump into this when I'm finished during question and answer, but I just wanted to outline the service area that is outlined in the ILA. So this red area will be the service area that this City Kyle facility is servicing. Now I want to be very clear, because the term regional facility is thrown around quite a bit. This will not be a facility that services the entire Hays County region. It will be servicing this specific service area. However, this service area, based on our evaluation and the county and Buta's evaluation, is about 70 to 80% of the intake for the entire Hays County region. So it's quite a large amount of intake from the county. So it covers quite a bit. What the City of Kyle is responsible for, and I'll go through these rather quickly, but the facility ownership, the full facility will be owned and operated, designed, constructed, and maintained by the City of Kyle. Animal sheltering services, some examples of that full services would be intake sheltering, adoption, veterinary services, quarantine, hold services, etc. Many different things that we'll take care of for this service area. Obviously, since we own, operate the building, we will have staffing and compliance, budgeting and cost allocations, governance oversight. So again, all of those policies that are developed and brought forward through the recommendation of that animal facility will come to council for approval. And assisting in animal control, and the reason I say assisting is we will be taking care of this service area from our animal control support. However, we do not have criminal enforcement jurisdiction in areas outside of the City of Kyle. So when it comes to anything that is related to criminal enforcement, so if we're outside of the City of Kyle and we're assessing fines, or we have some sort of a legal seizure, we will turn those things over to whichever jurisdiction it falls into for them to carry out those legal enforcements. Obviously, we're not responsible for the full funding of the facility. You saw that on the last slide. It's a breakdown and a shared cost. We are not responsible for financial risk for partner non-payments. So there is an element in the ILA that outlines if any of our partners do not pay what is outlined in the agreement, then we are not responsible for repayment or continuing those services. And likewise, if the City of Kyle does not pay what we have said we will pay and do not keep operations the way we have outlined in the ILA, they are not responsible. And so or we will pay back based on the ILA. So there are clawbacks and safeguards, as there should be in a partnership like this, for all entities involved. Individual partner governance, so there will be elements, specifically those law enforcement elements of each jurisdiction that they will take care of themselves, since each one is covered by each jurisdiction. And private, we are not responsible for private or joint ownership of the facility. So the City of Kyle owns the facility. In the ILA, I believe it outlines that we will not share it with any private entities, but that facility will be fully owned, operated, controlled, and staffed by the City of Kyle. So our timeline, our estimated timeline, we've already knocked out quite a few of these, and you all have seen them as we've done these presentations over time, but the MOUs have been drafted and signed. We have our interlocal agreement tonight. And I believe the Commissioners Court is hearing it in January, as well as the City of Buda. We have a design contract as the next item on this agenda with Jackson and Ryan, and we expect complete and full design by the end of 26 or sometime around there, having all the construction documents ready to break ground and start building in 26 and 27. So your options tonight are approval of the resolution as presented, approval of the resolution with modifications, or denial of the resolution. Staff recommends approval of the resolution. We'll take any questions you have.
Okay, we're going to have some questions if we have anything starting on this side. Councilmember Zapata.
So if we were to vote to table this item today, out of respect for our incoming council and mayor-elect, is the county negatively impacted by this? Or what sorts of things are we at risk of losing, perhaps? And I guess that's my question.
I'll give my response, and then if the city attorney has anything she'd like to add, I would yield to the floor to her. But I don't think we're at risk of losing anything. This same agreement will come back probably at the next council meeting if we were to table it.
I would just say that the county had indicated to us that they wanted to try to have this approved by the end of December. I think today they've had some additional conversations to say that they'd be willing to extend that to January the 6th. We certainly could do that. I think a 2 or 3 week period, if that's what the council wanted to do, that certainly doesn't jeopardize the project in our minds. If the intent is to renegotiate or spend 3, 4, 5, 6 months looking at a different type of agreement, that obviously would have a much different type of impact. But 2 to 3 weeks, I think there's no logistical issue that I'm aware of that would prevent that from happening.
Okay, and this is something that I might ask Judge Becerra. Is there any way in which this ILA is not heard on January 6th at Commissioners Court?
Go to the mic. We entirely, the full court, as you saw in the presentation, well done. We unanimously supported the MOU. We are unanimously behind this idea of working together. We teased out all the details about the footprint, the coverage, and he's hit them all right. Almost 80% of the real county-wide need is covered in this moment. All that is accurate. So I don't see, but I speak for one in this moment, right? I don't see this court, my commissioner's court, having any problem moving through with as presented, moving through with it as presented. My cause for pause was because I was asked to, and I will always speak in that space. I was asked to pause, and I was grateful that the court members supported my ask. And so we're hearing it's not about an etch-a-sketch. It's not about a redo it. There are some things that we still want to iron out. Don't get that wrong. It's not ready to sign, and we're 100% finished. I, for example, want to reiterate the positive live outcomes. Am I saying it right? So there are some fine tunings that we need to do to the overall agreement, but there's no reason why holistically we wouldn't approve this when presented.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody have anything on this side? Dr. Harris?
Well, I'd like to comment. We've been working on this for a year and a half, I believe. This council has looked at all of the recommendations, all of the plans for a long time. The interlocal agreement has been written with all of the entities together. I just don't see a reason to delay it at all. I'd love to go ahead and get it done, get the ILAs taken care of with as soon as, I'd like ours to go ahead and process. We don't have to wait on any other entity to do that. We're the leaders in this. We should lead.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember McKinney?
Yeah, I feel like this body is knowledgeable enough, capable enough, and competent enough to make the decision without having to wait. Waiting for the sake of waiting is not doing our people who elected us the service that they elected us to do.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Medina?
Can you speak to some of the comments that were made during citizen comments about the additional millions of dollars of cost looking forward and county having buildings at the facility where that information may come from? And
Yes, so the county having building at the facility, I believe, is in relation to the memorandum of understanding that we signed. That was part of a larger, on the same site, that was part of a larger project. It has a county building on the plat next to it, as well as a park for Cal Vista. That may have been the conversation. I'm not 100% sure. As far as from the city side, and other entities from what we can see, as far as the cost increasing, the city itself had budgeted a certain amount, I believe it was $10 million for the initial design and then construction of this building. The city, as well as what we can estimate with the county and Buda, will be saving a tremendous amount of money, much less than that. It could be as much as half of that $10 million. So rather than ballooning, the city sees it as a cost saving and getting a much higher product out of a partnership with all three entities.
And in regards to the ILA, as we're looking at it this evening, this is just discussing locking in the agreement between us, Buda, and Hays County, and not anything to do with the extra buildings, parks, and costs of those items.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina. That is exactly correct. This ILA has, I failed to mention that, this ILA has only to do with the partnership for the animal care facility. The lease agreement that's outlined in the memorandum of understanding will come back to this council as a totally separate agreement, not part of what you're approving tonight. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to add, going back to the agreement breakdown, and like I said, when we had our conversation yesterday about the percentages, it says under this percentage, because again, we're not trying to say we're going to rework this, but it says here that Hays County capital breakdown would have 64% of the breakdown on it. Kyle would have 32, and Buda would have 2.8. What kind of ballpark figure do you think that the city of Kyle would have to come up with as far as the ground itself? Because it has to do with the concept design, correct?
That's correct, and I have the breakdown in the design presentation coming up next. But I can tell you right now, as far as design services, the city will be paying around $542,000 for design services. The city of Buda will be paying around $46,500, and the Hays County will be paying a little over $1 million for the design services. That's just for design.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get into construction, we haven't designed the building. We don't even have a design contract for it yet. So it's just ballpark estimate numbers. But the building could be anywhere from $18 to $25 million, and that could be a cost savings for all of the entities. But for the city of Kyle, that could be a cost savings of anywhere from $12 to $16 million on the building itself. So it's tremendous cost savings. And then operations going forward could be significant as well, $1 to $2 million a year, possibly $2 to $3 million a year.
Yeah. Okay. And to go off of Councilman Zapata, did you have anything else? Okay. To go by what we were talking about, and I'm going to go on both sides. I hear this side here that I do agree. Yes, we have been talking about this for a very long time. We have been talking about trying to get, City of San Marcos is so overwhelmed with their animals, and they're saying, Kyle, Buda, everybody, you got to take care of your own. I just heard a news article on the radio that Austin's going through the same issue as well. I see that, I understand that. But if everybody knows who I am, I'm a very honest and respectful person, and I do listen to the residents, and I do show the respect to my colleagues and so forth. And I do see that waiting 2 weeks would not hurt, like Councilmember Zapata stated. What would we lose if we waited just one more meeting to allow the new elected officials to come on board and to show that respect, because they are going to be making the votes going forward. They are going to be the ones that have to advocate or give their opinions and also their considerations. And who knows, maybe serve on some of the boards that have to do with that. So I understand where my colleagues on my left are coming from, but I also understand out of the respect for the ones that are incoming to be able to allow them to have their say on that. So if there's anything else, I'd like to make a motion that we postpone and table agenda item number 20 and 21, if we can add that as well, to the following meeting on January the 6th. And so that way we could be able to allow the new council members to be able to have a say and also have an agreement to where if there's any other questions that we have, and I hope the residents that are seeing this, because there's a couple of residents that I spoke to had no idea that this was actually going to go in this area. So it's going to also give them that much more time to be aware. And I think by the 6th, maybe we can also come up with a plan to where if we go through with this, which I'm sure it probably will, but it's just giving them the respect to be able to have their say. We can be able to be on board and give the citizens more time to actually come to the meetings and see what we're doing. Because we are combining Hays County, a specific area, including Ulen, I'm sure, and Buda, and then us. And so with that, I'd like to make that motion to postpone and table items 20 and 21.
Can I second that?
Yes, second.
And then I just wanted to note real quick that this is something that I want to do out of respect for our incoming council and mayor-elect. It was not a courtesy that was extended to Councilmember Medina and I before we came in, but that doesn't mean I can't extend that courtesy forward, so I second that.
Anybody have any other feedback? Okay, Councilmember Harris.
I'd just like to make a note that we have had, as far as the residents, we have had a lot of input and public meetings on this. It's not like it should be a mystery to anybody that this has been talked about for a year. I still think we should take the leadership on it.
Councilmember McKinney?
Yes, it doesn't cost us anything to wait. I have, no real issue with delaying this, just as it stands. I would just like to point out that it does set a potential dangerous precedent that, are we going to wait to make decisions from this dais from first Tuesday of every November until potentially the first Tuesday in January every single year, and short our residents 20% of their sitting government? Just on the grounds of principle, I feel like we have a job to do, and I can understand the idea of wanting to wait for new people to come in, but that's not what we were elected to do.
And I may respond if you don't mind. True to that, yes, we are elected officials, but we are elected officials from the people themselves, okay? We are elected from them. And yes, we have to be at a leadership role. And there have been conversations, and I'm not trying to get political on this, of canceling this entire meeting. But you have to understand that you're right. City business still needs to continue. City business needs to be able to have that. Unfortunately, at this specific moment, we are just in a very unique situation. And it's just showing that respect in that sense. And again, it's one thing to cancel it completely, but it's just showing the sense that says if it's just 2 weeks, what would be the harm? If there's not, then but again, I see both sides. But to go forward, we've heard from the residents. We have to respect the residents, and that's who we actually work for and vote for on that end.
Well, we've heard from both sides of the residents, not just one side of the residents. There are people out there that want to see this desperately move forward. We've got a shelter that is closing. We want to see this move forward as quickly as it can. I'm sorry that the county did not approve their ILA today, but that does not mean we shouldn't. We're prepared to make this vote. I think we should move this forward.
I think I just have a follow-up question with that. So, for example, if we were to vote to approve this today, are we technically ahead? Because I think that the county needs to sign off, or else we're not technically ahead. We're still waiting for the county, correct?
Ultimately, for the interlocal to be approved, all parties would need to sign it.
So if we technically approved it on the same day as them on January 6th, then we're good. Right now, we wouldn't be putting ourselves ahead. We'd still be waiting, correct?
Our portion of the interlocal would be signed, and they would be taking it up to their board to be signed in January.
They're the ones that are lagging, not us getting ahead of them.
But we still need, if we're going to do this, we're going to need their funding. We're going to need their money. We're going to need to make sure we have that agreement. And here's another note. Yes, we have people from the county that's here. Where's Buda? Do I have anybody from a representative from the city of Buda that is here that wants to take part in this interlock agreement? Because I'm going to tell you, Dice, I've been here for many, many years, and I'll see developers that'll sit out here to the wee hours of the night waiting for them to approve maybe $100,000 of something from the city. And if we're going to be doing this major input here, and I brought this up to you last time, where's the county commissioners on this? Where's the city of Buda? Why are they not here advocating on their end of why this is a great deal? Yes, it's going to be a city-owned facility. Yes, it's going to be city employees. Yes, we'll probably get local people to volunteer. But the more I'm looking at it, if this is such a great deal, why are we not having all three parties here to advocate for this, to make me also feel comfortable? Because I get it. We need to get on the ball on this, but we're also partnering up with other entities on this. And the only persons that I've seen is just hearing it hearsay as far as, well, we've talked to so-and-so, and I still don't have any names from Buda. Maybe that's on me not reaching out. But then again, it's, if this is something that's very vital for, like we say, the city of Kyle, and it's a partnership, it's a combination of tax dollars. And we could say, well, the county's giving, city of Kyle residents still pay taxes into Hays County no matter what. So we're all paying for this. But as far as the representation, my opinion, looking at it, I'm very surprised I don't have anybody from the city of Buda standing up saying this is a great idea. And that kind of also kind of puts me on the back burner on that end. But you're right, we do need to be able to have our own facility. So if we're going to be going with other third parties, like I said, I'm surprised that we don't have any collaboration coming forward on that end. So. But we do. Brian, did you have something? If not, we still have a motion on the table.
Just to try to address that, I think this partnership has been presented to all three boards. So both city councils, Buda and the city of Kyle, as well as the county commissioners court. Jesse and I have presented to the county commissioners court and had detailed discussion with the commissioners there. Buda has indicated they're very supportive. Their council has approved the MOUs on the deal. We can certainly have a representative from their staff. Their entire city council can't come here because it's not a posted meeting for their council, but we could certainly have a representative here from staff to address any questions that you have at the next meeting. We'd be happy to do that, and I'm sure they'd be happy to do it. We just haven't asked them to do that.
That's fine. Okay.
And again, as we've looked at it, their council, our council, the commissioners court has all approved the conceptual framework in the deal. So I think they're not necessarily thinking they needed to be here, but I think they certainly would be willing if we needed to do that.
Sounds good. Okay. Here we have a motion on the table. Any other further discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes 3-2.
Motion fails. All motions require 4 votes.
4 votes?
4 votes. All motions under the charter require 4 votes.
Okay. All right. Motion fails. All right. With that, then, should we go ahead and make a motion to? I'll make a motion to. Well, we might be in a deadlock here.
Yeah. So the city charter provides that any motion requires 4 votes. It looks like we don't have the votes to table it. We could attempt to try a motion to pass it or a motion to deny it and kind of see what happens. Or we can have further discussion and see what council wants to do.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve agenda items number 20 and 21 by Councilmember Mark McKinney. Okay, and second by Dr. Harris. Do we have any discussions on that motion right there?
I'll say this, it's an imminent need. It really is. And while I would, love to have heard their input, like Dr. Harris has said, this has been a discussion for a year and a half. There's been ample opportunity for individual input. And there are a lot of decisions that we all have to follow our previous council on. Every single one of us, when we came in and took these seats, there were decisions that were made before us that we have to follow behind. So I see this as being no different.
Okay. Anybody have any other go ahead, Councilman Bendia.
So I understand as a new council person, the elect wanting to be able to come in and have the discussions and being able to vote on behalf of. Since we can't postpone to the next meeting, and the fact that this is just an ILA to lock in the agreement to work between Buda and Hayes County, I would be in favor of moving forward with the ILA so that we can get this going. And then when everything else comes back to council, our elect will be on staff to vote for those rules, regulations, the design, and everything else, and the funding.
All right. Anybody else have anything else? Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do we have, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Motion passes 3-2.
Motion fails.
Fails, I'm sorry.
3-2.
All right. So according to what Medina says, if that's where we're at, then again, having the designs come back.
So there are some philosophical discussions we can have on how to continue this item. One of them is we can retool it and you can request that staff bring it back. One of them is somebody can provide a request for reconsideration at the next meeting. But at the moment, we obviously didn't have the votes to pass item 20.
Okay. So with that, then go ahead, Councilmember Zapata.
But these two things are kind of fundamentally different, correct?
21?
Yeah.
I would wager, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, that we are not ready to pass item 21 without item 20. Is that correct?
My answer to that would be item 21 is separate from the ILA because the design of the building would go forward whether we have partners on this or not. Now, it's up to council to decide whether they would like to put them together as far as the ILA going forward and the design of the building going forward. But the design itself is something that if we were doing this all by ourselves as the city of Kyle, we would still need a design of the building.
Okay, so technically that is something that we could get ahead on, correct?
The other thing, just to add though, the cost could be potentially lower if it's a smaller facility, a lower number of intake, those kinds of things. I think those are something we would need to look at. I don't know on the exact cost. That's not how we've scoped that item for item 21. But I think
The size of this facility is based off of the needs through the ILA.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
But I don't think we're expecting substantive changes to the ILA. So I don't, is there something that I'm missing here? I feel like I'm.
The first part of the design contract, which we would discuss in the next presentation, is a further study, the feasibility study that the design contract is initially conceptually based off of was the City of Kyle itself. And so there's the first part of the scope of the design contract is to go out and look at that additional capacity and what the intake would be and all of that. What that does or changes as far as the design would be part of the scope of that design contract. So there's a lot of elements at play here that we could dig deep into.
I'm not comfortable moving forward on 21 without 20.
All right. Could we reconsider going ahead and conducting another vote on 20 and 21?
You can make a motion to table 21. On 20, if you want to do it, you'll need to, I guess, reconsider the vote that already occurred.
Okay, so we would have to make a motion to consider approving agenda item number 20.
I would suggest reconsidering the motion to table, if that's what you want to do.
Okay. All right. So with that, to continue to move forward, I'll make the motion to reconsider moving to table agenda item number 20.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dr. Harris. Okay. All right. Do we have any continued discussion on this? No? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Consider approving agenda item number 21. It would be approval. I'd like to have him take a motion for that.
I would move to table 21 with 20.
Okay, consider tabling 20, agenda item number 20, and I'll second that motion to that we table item number 21.
But we just voted to table 20, correct?
No, we passed it.
We passed the motion to reconsider.
We passed the motion to reconsider, okay?
Okay.
So now we can go back, if you want to go ahead and make the motion to approve agenda item number 20.
You can make a motion to table both together if you would like to do that. I think that was the original motion anyway.
I'll make a motion to table both together.
Okay, I'll second. Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you, City Council. I'll keep those presentations warm.
Thank you. It'll just be for 1 minute.
So I have a question. On the motion to reconsider tabling 20, we don't cover that tonight? We don't reconsider that tonight?
We did reconsider that, and then we just voted 4-1 to table 20 and 21.
21?
20 and 21. They said both together.
Okay.
All righty. Now we're moving on to agenda item number 5 and receive a report to hold discussion and possible staff feedback for the United Development Code, rewrite and overwrite of the zoning code diagnostic report. It'd be Melissa McCollum.
Thank you, council members. I'm really excited to present to you today kind of an update on where we're at with our UDC presentation. And as you can see, it was apropos to really kind of follow it with mobility plan. As some of your questions indicated, they are closely connected. Again, this was really spearheaded based on our comp plan approvals a couple years ago, really said we should look at our codes, how they're implemented, how they work with our vision that we have, and the mobility plan is one of those visioning documents as well. We have done some engagement out in the community and also with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we will continue to have additional engagement. And really where we're at today is to get feedback kind of from where we're at with the diagnostic report from you. We did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and presented to them and got some great feedback, and we're really looking to kind of get some additional feedback from you this evening. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chance with F&I, and he can kind of go through some of the presentations, and we're available to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Melissa. Chance Sparks with Freeze and Nichols. Happy to be back here again this evening. Main goal for this evening is to really confirm our direction that we're heading in with the rewrite process. So the diagnostic report is the first step of that, and it's not intended to itemize every single thing that needs to change. It's intended to capture those big items, big topic areas that we know we need to focus on, have some good solid general direction on them. So we know when we start drafting this, we are rowing at least in the correct direction so we can refine it to get on the exact right course as we go through drafting. Again, for any of you that are newer to this, y'all are running a two-step process to this. It's a best practice. You're tackling your development code and your engineering manuals at the same time. As I said at the first meeting, I will compliment y'all at every single meeting on doing it this way. It's the best practice. So we're going to review, discuss this diagnostic report, and then really seek some feedback from you on what are the questions you have, what are the things we need to be thinking about further as we step into drafting. So as Melissa said, we've talked with various groups within city staff that offer different perspectives on this, as well as different engagement groups. This tends to focus, of course, on the community, but also on specific code users and different perspectives they bring, whether they're business owners, a home builder, a design professional that works for those folks, your commissions themselves, to gain a good understanding of how are your regulations currently operating. We heard a lot of really interesting feedback. We hear a lot about, there's a lot of technical standards that are kind of buried in the code that make it really hard to read, hard to approach. We've heard also broader policy perspectives. We want to be able to support more small businesses, locally owned businesses. How can the code help shape that? We heard about ways to make a system that's a little bit more predictive or predictable, where they can know that for sure when they enter the design process, what they have to accomplish to get to a permit at the end without wondering about a discretionary approval along the way. And then looking at some really detailed standards, streamlining, things like that. That's where issues like the mobility plan come into play, to make sure that we're coordinating with that, as well as the housing plan, housing study that's also in the works. So again, code diagnostic, we're about focused on operationalizing what we see in your plans. Your plans all had a lot of community engagement. So we start from that point and bring in that philosophy. We build out issue statements and recommendations to address those. Again, pulling in information from specific users. Really going towards a consensus building effort so that when you're drafting the code, it goes smoothly, it's well understood, less likely to have rework along the way. We again looked at several different plans, several different documents. You have a wide variety of different plans that we have looked at on this, including your most recent, your Parks, Recreation, Open Space plan. And we've also had, of course, the conversations with city staff and your Planning and Zoning Commission. So there's some big overarching themes that kind of inform everything that we're going to look at. Create a user-friendly code. That does not mean a code that is weak. It means a code that is direct, uses simple language that regular people can understand. We want to separate out those engineering design criteria that are currently baked into your code. Most of your code users are not design professionals. Place those standards in a spot where they are all in one place, there for them. Let the development code itself focus on the policy and direction. Update the zoning regulations. We want to look at, this is going to be a comprehensive rewrite of your zoning regulations. Looking at how we look at your plan development processes, your overlay standards, particularly cases where you have overlay districts on a map, but it's hard to correlate them to standards within the code. And also introducing some form-based standards to support your downtown. That was one of the key recommendations that came out of your comprehensive plan and some of your other plans. We want to bring your use and development standards a little bit closer together. Right now they're scattered in a few different places in your regulations, makes it a little hard to use. Expand on the Vibe Trails plan, some of the ideas behind that in terms of creating sense of place scattered throughout your community versus all focused in one place. That also has implications for things like mobility planning, where if you're shortening trips, it changes how you have to think about your systems along the way. So What we're going to do is I'm going to step through each of kind of your key chapters, hitting some very high level points. Recognize that you have the full document in front of you. I think it's about 60 pages, give or take. We don't want to do a page turner through that, A, because I don't want to put you to sleep, but also give you a little bit more time to digest it, of course, too. Key things we're doing, we're bringing all of your development code definitions, putting them all in one place, putting them at the back of the document. That's because when people open up an ordinance, their first thing isn't, I want to look at definitions. They want to dive straight into process and policy and go reference definitions as they need them. It's not unlike how a textbook is set up. Building regulations. We want to look at shifting all your fee enabling language to just simply cross-reference to your fee schedule, makes that easier to work with. Make sure all your use-based regulations are connected to one another, that they aren't conflicting with each other. We're going to look at some of the legislative direction that has come out in terms of legislative updates. This is where you will also start to see elements of housing topics insert into this. There's been some pretty clear direction at the legislative level, as well as other planning best practices and your planning direction in that. Business regulations, to try to line those up. Right now, those are in a separate chapter, and they include both operating type standards, which that's where they're supposed to be, but also a lot of use related and design standards in those that we want to pull out, and things like that along the way. We're going to be looking at some good, strong updating to your flood damage prevention types of regulations. Very Kyle specific, recognizing what is your flood characteristics here, because those are different from not just across the state, but it varies even within this county in terms of what you're dealing with, the age of your development, and how that shapes things. We're going to be looking at, of course, lining up with your Texas Water Development Board standards for that, some best practices. If you want to step into something like community rating system, sets you up for that. So if you want to pursue those types of flood insurance discounts, you've got a path to that. Within Parks and Recreation, this focus is taking your recently adopted plan, bringing it into the regulatory space in terms of how do you require parkland dedication, parkland development, when is a fee in lieu versus build the park, and everything in between. This will also focus again on the vibe system standards, trail system standards, and then sign regulations. This is going to be looking at a lot of case law that has occurred over about the last decade and a half or so. That has really shaped how these things are written now. It'll be focused on how do we write this for good content neutrality for First Amendment purposes. Also, it's a very text-heavy part of your code right now. Most people understand signs visually. We're going to shift this as much as possible into a visual communication, not just in the sign regulations, but really throughout your regulatory framework here. Within site development, get your processes and timelines all lined up well, add some good cross-reference standards for issues like grading, flooding, landscaping, all these types of things that also appear in the criteria manual. Bring your processes together. Right now they are disjointed. They sometimes run into each other. We want that to be a smooth, linear process. We'll be, of course, pulling in standards from the mobility plan. What we tend to do when you have a brand new mobility plan like this or one that's actively in development, rather than putting the street sections into the code, we actually adopt by cross-reference to your mobility plan. That's because that allows you to bring in a lot more of the policy perspective with that, and you've got a really clean set of sections right there that people easily understand, know when and how to apply each type. And again, simplifying definitions, addressing some of your roadway network needs, things like that. Walkability often comes down to network design. How do you make sure things connect well along the way? Subdivisions. This is where the state legislature slid in and really rewrote the whole chapter in state law regarding subdivision regulations. That means most cities are doing something similar. You will not be an exception to that. So we're going to be looking at administrative processes with this. It's a ministerial process anyway, and then use that as a tool for if somebody's wanting to deviate, they lose that administrative approval path and it shifts into a discretionary approval. We'll look at local traffic regulations. This again pulls in the mobility plan recommendations for how to address traffic management, traffic impacts, but also your non-traditional mobility methods, whether it's golf carts, building out this vibe plan vision, things that are a little bit different and very Kyle specific. Your utilities, of course, play into this for adequate public facilities. With growth comes demand. With demand comes the conversations you have about capital improvements, things like that. So make sure that your code is set up so that development is paying its way in an appropriate proportional manner. Then lastly here, zoning. We're going to look at some zoning district consolidation. You have many districts that are not used at all or barely used. My personal favorite is you have a billboard zoning district that is, I think, on a quarter of an acre in your whole city. That's the only place it appears. So some things like that that we want to address. But also, it's also about simplifying your district system and leveraging use-based standards instead with that. We're going to rewrite your permitted uses table. Right now, you use something called SIC codes, SIC codes. Those are very specific. They're also not intended for regulatory purposes. So they're typically more in the economics and tracking kind of information. Looking at your parking standards, of course, market-based. One of the innovative things we're looking at is a point system-based approach for a couple of reasons. It's very predictable. It's very objective, and it gives you a way to dial it up or down if you want to reward higher quality development. That's where we really like it. We're going to look at that. And also take another look at your lighting regulations. Whether you want to go down a full dark sky sort of pathway, we always put a big asterisk next to that. That doesn't mean it is dark on the ground. It means that it is dark in the sky. It's still a highly effective approach to lighting that focuses on efficiency. Landscaping. This is one of the more confusing parts of your regulations today. We're going to want to make sure that this is brought in and focuses on the climate where we are here in Central Texas. You have a feast and famine approach to rainfall. So you got to be drought tolerant. You got to think about different types of soil. The types of plants that work west of I-35 and east of I-35 are very different. Rocky soil versus very clayey, high plasticity soils that do much different things. And also looking at how to address tree preservation and addressing that separately from your landscape along the way. So that is a big, broad overview. I'd love to get some feedback from y'all, and then I'll finish up with a what happens after this step. So I'm going to hush up here for a minute, give y'all a shot at me.
Okay, any questions? Dr. Harris?
I would really like to see incentives for water conservation, as well as livability standards in developments where everything is not just house, 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 or apartments all crammed together like we're seeing now. I'm especially pleased to see tree ordinances and lighting ordinances being included as important focus areas in this. We have some issues right now with developments clear cutting, although they certainly should not have done that. They have, and very little appreciation by some developers of either water conservation or lighting or the trees. So I really would like for us to begin to emphasize that more.
Anybody else? Councilmember Zapata.
All right, I'm going to have fun with this one too, so you'll be up there for a moment. But I'm going to reiterate this every chance I get, but displacement is one of my number one concerns. So I guess my question is, are there tools within the UDC that staff is considering or that y'all have found that can help retain existing housing stock, especially older and more affordable homes?
Absolutely, and there's a long list of tools that can be used to address that. The thing that's so interesting about displacement issues is the cause of displacement varies from city to city, community to community, even neighborhood to neighborhood. So you have to really look at it and curate that. We're really excited about Housing Works being active here. We worked with them some in the past, and having some good conversations with them about what are they seeing on the ground here. Displacement is something that we emphasize a lot in our code work, in part because I actually live in a community that has been subject to displacement. I live in the Dunbar neighborhood of San Marcos. And so it's a little bit personal for me. It's something we think about a lot. But in terms of different tools, one of the things we were talking about in this is a form-based code. That's important to consider because it can be a tool to help with displacement challenges. If you don't calibrate it correctly, it can actually exacerbate them. So you have to be really careful about how you tool that. You have to think about how do you motivate people to preserve existing stock. We call this naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA for short. And how do you keep that in place? That can be a matter of things like, allowing next increment of density, but not a full-blown redevelopment. It can be, accessory dwelling units. It can be how do you allow for, do they have to be owner occupied or not? There's a laundry list of tools out there to address, but it's also important to note that it's an incomplete sentence. Fixing it in your development regulations is kind of just part of the story. To really comprehensively address displacement, it requires stuff well outside of the development conversation too.
Yeah, and I think I know that it's all about a complete wraparound service, that we have to look at when we take displacement into consideration. But I do know that a lot of it can start with development code. So I guess my question is, when it comes to the form-based, the word is leaving my mind right now. But when it comes to these form-based requirements, are there ways in which we can address those so that way we're not making it like an undue burden on small businesses? Some sort of like leniency, phased approach, something, because the other thing that I'm worried about is displacement of local and small businesses.
Yeah, that's one of the other things we talk about with form-based codes is they're not a monolithic thing. My best analogy for it is form-based codes operate kind of on a thermostat. You can turn them up, you can turn them down. You can vary how much you turn them up and down by the type of zoning district it is or something like that. So you can definitely tailor to that. You can also tailor to the size of the size of the project that's it's involved. If it's somebody converting a house or a garage into their business, that's a different thing than I'm going to take down an entire city block and redevelop. Those should have very different standards and different expectations. But there's also things you can plug into for incentives. When we think about small businesses, one of the keys is having affordable places to lease to get started. A good thing to incentivize can be small lease spaces, the 300, 400 square foot kind of lease space that can get somebody cranked up. And so you can find ways to reward that type of development pattern via your code. And that's a few of the little tips and tricks you can do with that. Some of it also is thinking about conservation type standards for how do you make it worth it to keep the old things.
Yeah. Preservation is always the more cost-friendly thing to do as well. And so, I think whenever I was thinking about this, I was considering things like, we could be, I think, more expand our adaptive reuse provisions and to create a more friendly environment for small businesses. And also, I think also in terms of residential areas, so that way, in case people want to make changes, it doesn't trigger like a full redevelopment, necessity or of standards being applied. And so I think my next question is, when zoning intensity is increased, what safeguards are being considered to prevent the displacement of existing residents? And I think that's somewhat similar, but this might just be, and I'm not sure if this is out of scope of the report, but I would like us to possibly consider, and maybe this is something that along with you all and the housing assessment that's being done, but being able to provide a list of based on what you all have seen on the code and what you hear from public of possible anti-displacement tools that we could later use for consideration.
Yeah, I'll try to answer some of that, but I think given the interest in the subject and how it interacts with so many different plans and aspects of what we're trying to do as a city, I think coming back with a displacement policy, strategy, something like that would be my recommendation to you. If the council's interested in doing that, we can come back and it's probably going to hit lots of different areas, but then you'd have an overall strategy. That'd be my recommendation to you if that's an interest if that's kind of where you're
That
going.
is 100% of interest to me. I think that would be great. And because we also have all these moving parts with all these different plans, having one area where it's conglomerated, I think would be great.
It's definitely got an element here in this. It has an element in our housing strategy. It has an element in the mobility plan and lots of other areas. So I think we could certainly, if that's an interest, we can have that as a takeaway to bring that back to you. I'm not sure exactly what all that looks like, but we can certainly work on that for you.
Okay,
So
all
you're,
right.
you're kind of recommending or bringing forward like a procedure or policy for those that are displaced with whatever it is, whether it's unemployment or medical or elderly?
Well, no.
or-
So anti-displacement, the entire practice of it is making sure that people who live here can stay living here, whether that's through affordability issues that we can solve, aging in place issues that we can solve, those who are on a fixed income, and people who are displaced by any infrastructure that we are putting into place. So like all of like the right-of-way acquisitions and stuff, like those things impact displacement and can lead people to have to be pushed out of their homes a lot faster because like land values rise where there's infrastructure growth. And so it's just about taking a very holistic approach and look at how everything that we do impacts people being able to afford to live here. And so as long as we're conscious about that, that enables us with tools, which I think is what's being presented right now, to be able to look at those things moving forward.
If I could, just to add to that, I think one of the things that we could do is pull this together a little bit in a work session type environment, just like we're doing tonight, give you some conceptual framework of what that might look like and give the council as a whole an opportunity to give us feedback on if we're heading in the right direction. Do you think this is the kinds of things that you're looking for in the rest of the group? And then if so, then we would bring back something as a policy that you would vote on at some point. But I think we need to probably give some conceptual ideas together, have a discussion, and I think maybe Councilmember Tobias to give what is it not, how far do you want to go on that continuum with these different policies and give you guys a chance to think about that. And then
I think certain cities are starting to do kind of what she's stating because like Austin has a housing issue and affordability issue, and they're coming up with their city council are trying to come up with ways for that, for whether it's affordability, whether it's specific groups, veterans, or whatever the case may be, because the cost of living is just going up so much. Having something in place for those that we want to have them stay in our city, but having a plan, correct, to say this is where we're at, whether we utilize any funding here or if we go after grant money later on or something like that, or find out other avenues we can be able to help people stay in their homes.
100%.
Right.
And I think
what you're
all
looking
of the plans that we're currently doing and all the assessments and whatnot, that will also give us great feedback as to, based on their findings and their research, different tools that are available. And then it would be up to us to figure out like, okay, what do we want? What don't we want? What fits? What doesn't fit? And so I think it's just about laying out those tools for us, and then we get to decide what we do with that.
It's true, because we also have a lot of nonprofits in our group, in our city, that could, let's say, the Lions Club could be able to partner up with that, because you work with a great organization, Mark, and so it could be focusing on that and partnering up with those type of groups. That also goes back to the housing and so forth.
And then I just also want to stress, and I know you talked about this in the presentation about like the connectivity, but when it comes to addressing like our sidewalks and whatnot, I just really want to make sure that we're emphasizing that they need to be continuous and connected, so that way we are addressing some of these sidewalk gaps, and we also don't let developers kind of weasel their way out of providing a sidewalk when it's desperately needed. I think the other question that I had is about, I know that we talked about food trucks. And so I'm just wanting to make sure that what we're doing is actually to help ease the burden that food trucks are currently facing.
Sure, and that is one of the areas we're looking at. Part of actually what we're kind of waiting on right now is there was state legislation related to food trucks, particularly how they handle like their health registrations and all that. They're supposed to be going through a rulemaking process on that, for that over, I think, like the next 6 to 9 months at the state. We'll see if they hold to that schedule. I'm not optimistic, but we want to see how that plays out, or if we can at least get preliminary indication of where that's going. Because if the state law is going to resolve part of this, we don't want to try to duplicate. We want to let them figure out what they're going to do and then figure out, okay, at the local government level, where and how do you need to insert yourself into that conversation and do so to the minimum necessary to achieve your policy outcome.
Okay. All right. And then I guess my final question is, I know that we talked about let's make this less clunky and let's insert more graphics and graphs and tables and maps. As a part of that, is it possible that we can identify and map geographies where sidewalks, crossings, lighting, and pedestrian connectivity are required by right? Just so that way, whenever people do refer to the code, it's already very clearly laid out on a map.
Oh yeah, like where it might be like if you want to have like a variable standard where it's a hard requirement in these areas and these other areas you can explore, I don't know, a family or something.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's plausible and can be done. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's it. That's all my questions. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time on this.
Anybody have any other questions? No, we're good. Okay. Is there any direction that you need from us, Ms. McCollum?
Sure. I think we were just going to kind of end the next couple of slides just to kind of talk about our code process, how we're continuing with this code diagnostic. We're really transitioning over to some of the drafting of the code and modules, and we'll continue to meet with our stakeholder groups and continue to come back to you for consideration and approval. So we are using the Planning and Zoning Commission to really kind of be the seats at the table to really kind of get into the weeds on this. So we'll continue to engage with that commission as well, knowing that this will obviously come back to council for final adoption too. And then this is kind of just generally kind of the schedule. You can kind of see we've completed the diagnostic, and we're really trying to break up the modules into bite-sized pieces to look at those individual concepts, and we'll come back with additional check-ins.
When I saw that planning and zoning and city council many years ago, I don't know if the rest of y'all were, of course not, maybe not on council, but we had a group combined meeting workshop with planning and zoning and then us with that kind of in getting different types of ideas and structures and so forth. Gosh, it was like in 2022, 21 when we had that. So I wonder if we could maybe look at doing something like that.
Absolutely, yes.
As a workshop day or something like that.
You would love that.
Yeah,
as well as staff would too. So yes, if you're willing to do some combined kind of workshop meetings, additional meetings, that would be awesome.
It's very informative to get their opinion versus,
You can
us.
feed off of each other.
Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. We're continuing to move on, and we're trucking down the road. Consent agendas. Is there anybody that would like to pull any items from the consent? Yes, Dr. Harris?
Councilmember
Yes.
Tobias, if I could, I did want to make mention that item 12, staff is requesting that we pull that item from consideration tonight.
Okay.
There are some issues with that, some of the language that we had in the posting, and we want to correct that. So
Yes,
if-
sir.
If you
Okay.
could pull that from consideration, we would
No
appreciate it.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And Dr. Harris?
I'd like to pull item 6 for just some education for us about this project. Since it's a research project, I think it's really interesting and has a lot of potential, but I'd like for us to understand it better. I would like to pull item number 7, just for a quick question on how many new meters we're looking at. There just wasn't any listing about exactly what this new expense was going to cover. Then I would like to pull items number 9 through 14, with the exception of 12, which has already been pulled, as a group to talk about the process for looking at these 5-year contracts. I think that's all I want to pull. Let me take another.
Yeah, no problem.
There could be another one.
Was there number 16 as well, or That would be number 16 on my end.
Yeah, I was
I
not
think you did it. So you would like so far 6,
through 14.
7, and what about number 8?
Well, yeah, no,
Okay,
9 through 14.
9 through 14.
Except 12's already been
Yeah.
pulled.
Okay. And then.
But I'd
number-
like for 9 through 14, except for 12, to be considered as a group.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else? Mr.
And you're
McKinney?
pulling which, did you say?
I'm going to pull your items 6, 7, and let's combine 9, 10, 11, 13, 14 as a group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then some clarification on number 16. And anybody on this side would like to pull any items if you need to ask a quick question on consent?
Just a quick question on 17.
Oh, okay. Quick question on 17 as well. Okay, anybody else? Councilman Medina, you're good? Okay. If not, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve agenda item number 8, agenda item number 15, 18, and 19.
Second.
Second was motion made by Dr. Harris. Any discussions on those items? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Motion passes for those items. So we're going on to Councilmember Dr. Harris's item number 6, consent number 6. Consider approval of resolution authorizing 3-year interlocal agreement with Texas State University for Lake Kyle Water Quality Improvement Project in the amount of $456,000. Okay. Dr. Harris?
Yeah, I'd like to go through the presentation on this and better understand what the objectives are and the scope.
Absolutely. So this is an item for looking at water quality improvement for recreational uses for Lake Kyle. Little bit of background. So City of Kyle is the headwaters of Plum Creek. By headwaters, we are the very upstream end of Plum Creek. And being one of the fastest growing cities, it is not uncommon that we get blamed for things that got put into Plum Creek. So currently, Plum Creek is impaired, meaning that the amount of pollutant so it's impaired for E. coli, meaning that the concentration of E. coli is exceeding the limit from the EPA, and it's unsafe for any contact for recreational uses. This could include wading, fishing, swimming. And that is a concern for us because the downstream sometimes will think that the City of Kyle is responsible for those pollutants. And about 8.6%, I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna switch slides here. About 8.6% of the entire city drains into Lake Kyle, and Lake Kyle is kind of a flow-through lake on Plum Creek. So the goal of this project is for us to look at what the current water quality condition is in Lake Kyle and explore ways to help also the Parks Department to support recreational uses for these lakes on Plum Creek. So this is the drainage area, 1,815 acres, and also collects stormwater runoff from the downtown Kyle. So the next slides will show you kind of where the location of Lake Kyle. On the left side, we're showing Plum Creek on the northeast corner of that graph, and then you can see Lake Kyle with that little red star. And the right side of the picture, that is the entire drainage area of Lake Kyle. So all this area, including downtown Kyle, drains into Lake Kyle. So it is a very good representation of the water quality here in Kyle. And a little bit of overview of this project. So from a very direct objective for this project is this will allow us to support recreational uses for these water bodies within the city. And from kind of a broader view, right now, so it is commonly that when a water body is identified, it's impaired for a certain pollutant, it will be put on an EPA, what it called a 303D list. And when you're on the 3D list, EPA will require you to do a TMDL, which means total maximum daily load. When you're under that, each drainage area, watershed, it could be divided by municipal boundaries. You're allocated a certain amount that you can drain into the water bodies each year. Usually it's between E. coli, nutrient, or total suspended solids. However, it's kind of a fortunate and unique case for the city that the Plum Creek watershed is not put on a TMDL, but instead it's put on a watershed protection plan. And I think we've been on there for about 10 years. We don't know how long the state's gonna allow us to stay on that. The good thing with that compared to a TMDL is any of the action we take is not enforced. So if the state decide to pull us off the watershed protection plan, put us on the TMDL, we are required to reduce our load for E. coli. What it means for us could be we have to retrofit a lot of our detention ponds, and that is not a small cost for us, retrofitting all those existing facilities. So from a kind of a bigger view for this project, this is a proactive step for us to take between supporting the recreational use and look at innovative ways for us to proactively improve our water quality. And also, one of the devices we're using is floating wetlands, and I'll have a picture showing some examples. It will also provide aesthetic values to the water body. And these floating wetlands can also be implemented on different water bodies. And one of the outcomes for this project also that the city will be featured in a peer-reviewed article. This is kind of going through a little bit project scope. This is a 3-year interlocal project. First year, we focus on understanding where we're at. Although being impaired for E. coli, there is not a whole lot of monitoring of the water quality to tell us what our current situation is. So that's what we want to focus to collect some water quality data of Lake Kyle and preparing for those floating wetlands. Year 2, we focused on implementing these wetlands. And between year 2 and year 3 after implementation, so for peer-reviewed articles and for scientific data, a lot of times you do need longer than 1 year of data to be able to tell the full story. So we're looking at the fiscal year 27, 28 to really monitor the performance of these floating wetlands on Lake Kyle. And here's the graph of the project timeline. And some examples of the extra floating wetlands being implemented in different cities. So they provide aesthetic value, and they will actively pick up nutrient and pick up E. coli, form colonies, and help improve the water quality. And the city is, for this project, will be using an interlocal agreement, and the total contract's $456,546 for 3 years, and you can see the year 1, 2, 3 breakdown of each allocation. And then those fundings will only be approved on a yearly basis, meaning today, as of today, we're approving the $165,000 that we're asking for. And then option 1 is to approve the resolution as written for 3 years with Texas State University. The amount is $456,546. And option 2 is do not approve, and staff recommending approve the interlocal agreement. I'll take questions.
Dr. Harris.
This does not include actually evaluating or implementing anything in Plum Creek. Because Lake Kyle is not actually attached to Plum Creek. It's in the watershed.
Correct. It drains into Plum Creek, so it's in the drainage area to the Plum Creek. if we find that these floating wetlands can help us improve the water quality in Lake Kyle, these can be transferred to other water bodies and help us improve the water quality. So if necessary, we can actually move those to Plum Creek.
Well, Plum Creek is a different scenario somewhat than our detention ponds because it actually has some spring-fed components to it. Cool Springs does as well, but I don't think Lake Kyle does. I think it's a conservation lake. And you know, Plum Creek starts in the neighborhood of Plum Creek. That's where it actually starts. It used to start across Culler's Crossing. No more does that work. It starts actually in the drainage area going into the HOA lakes at Plum Creek. So that's kind of the start of any pollution problems that may be happening, perhaps. So you know, I see that that's two kinds of evaluation. You know, the headwaters of the area that is maybe contributing, and the detention ponds are kind of two different things.
So typically for handling pollutions, there are two different ways. One is source control, the other is end reduction. So with source control, you're reducing the amount of pollutant that goes into the water body. Those include the upstream drainage area, detention pond solutions, and you also have an end reduction where you go to the very end of it once you collected all those water already, and you deal with all the pollutant reduction at the outlet of your issue. So these can be implemented both, and understand that Plum Creek has a different
content.
Yes, the water, different water source than the Lake Kyle, but a lot of times when we see E. coli, it's coming from the first flush after the rainfall, so there's a lot of surface runoff that we're dealing with. The groundwater actually are, lack of a better term, very clean compared to what the surface water is.
Of course. Yeah. So the master naturalist about 5 years ago did an evaluation of the water bodies related to Plum Creek, including Cool Springs and Lineberger Lake. And what we found was that there are some contributors to the health of those bodies, especially in the Plum Creek. We found a number of types of mussel, 5 types of mussel, actually, in Plum Creek. But then when we drained like Lake Kyle, if you saw the layer of pondhorn and pond shell in that lake, there was nothing else, but there was probably layer after layer of those. So they have been the major source of processing the water, you know, of pollutants. Have we looked, I mean, I realize this study is not going to address that, but is it possible to combine, including the mussels and a lot of the, I realize a lot of the E. coli cleanup is being done by the mussels as well. So I'd like to have those at least considered. And the Meadows Center, as far as the regular evaluation of the Plum Creek, I know Meadows Center Stream Team is doing regular evaluations of Plum Creek. I think it's Steeplechase, but don't quote me on that one. But I do know they're doing at least one regular evaluation on that one. So are we getting that data?
We'll certainly reach out to them.
Hi, Kathy Raker, Stormwater Program. So, Dr. Harris, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I do agree with your statements. One of the things, so I started in 2015, and I started as the Stormwater Administrator, and my sole job is try to reduce pollutants going into our waterways. And so, again, as Lou had said, whenever I first started, our wastewater treatment plant was horrible, so we were automatically blamed, and there was a lot more E. coli going into Plum Creek at that time. So everybody, though, pointed the finger at Kyle. Everybody did. It was Kyle's fault. It's Kyle's fault. And this goes all the way down that 52-mile stretch until it hits the San Marcos River. Right. We were responsible for all of it. And so here I am.
But we weren't.
Yeah, exactly. And so one thing that over all these years that now that I've been with the city of Kyle, it's driven me crazy because, again, my background is an environmental degree, and I do want to protect our waterways. And so I started thinking all these times, I was like, how can we reduce our pollutants in stream? Because yes, we're starting to trap hogs. That was something that started, I think, in 2022 because E. coli or feces from hog waste was a major contributor to Plum Creek. We did find that out through a bacterial source tracking, which I found very interesting. But we can't just kill all the wildlife. That's not an option. And so one of the reasons this kind of came to fruition is how can we treat E. coli in stream? And that's what we really, we want to make our water safer. We want to reduce that level of E. coli. And also, too, if we can reduce it enough, we'll be able to get rid of this, what we call a watershed protection plan. And we could actually be a success story as opposed to, for the last 10 years, I've been turning my wheels, just trying to figure out how do you try to solve this problem? What is a possible solution? And so that's kind of how this was born, if that makes any more sense. So it's Lake Kyle is not in stream, but it discharges directly to Plum Creek. And one other thing that I started looking at the city of Kyle, if you look around Kyle, we have a lot of the SCS reservoirs around us. And if you think about how deep those are and how much they're taking in and it's settling down at the bottom, and then you get a flood, it turns it up and it discharges it. How much are those possible? And so if we could institute wetlands in all these different reservoirs, what would that do eventually if we find this successful? So we need to start somewhere, and Lake Kyle was an easy place. Accessibility, getting Texas state crews down to the water's edge, being able to pull regular samples where not all of our water bodies have that
so it's
accessibility.
for convenience right now at Lake Kyle.
Correct.
Yeah, and Lake Kensington definitely, we need to be very careful because we are wanting to use that for recreational purposes.
Correct. And that's where this came from, if that makes any more sense.
Yeah. I would hate to limit our interventions to only one.
Yes.
And I know that you're considering others. I'd like for us to look at, what we could do in Lineberger Lake.
I agree.
Because that's a fishing lake, and it's very accessible as well. Maybe we could be looking at, like I said, a variety of mussels that might help, that are native,
Yes.
definitely natives. And I do think that the pollution is different in all of our reservoirs where the source pollution is in them.
I agree.
Anybody else? What would the Texas State University have a part in? Would there be students out there doing research, or what would be their role?
Yeah, so they'll have students out there collecting samples, and the Texas State University will be constructing those floating wetlands, and then they will be implementing those. They will be monitoring the performance, any maintenance needs within those 3-year period, and also they will be producing that peer-reviewed article as well.
Good. So Kathy, you're gonna have some role models. They're gonna be looking up to you in the future. There's a lot of these students. That's nice. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right.
I move to approve.
Okay.
Item
Second.
6.
Okay. Motion was made by Councilmember Dr. Harris, second by Councilmember McKinney. Okay. Do we have any discussion on the item? Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay. Item passes. Now we move on to item number 7. This is also pulled by Dr. Harris. Consider approval of amendment number 3, contract 2024-80 for the Cooperation Aquametric to increase the contract amount by $600,000 for each remaining contract year, resulting in the annual of $985,695 for the fiscal year 26, and all remaining future option years establish a new to not exceed the contract of the amount of $5,314,170.
Thank you. If you would like to quickly go through the presentation, but I really just have a couple of quick questions.
Okay, we can do that. Mike Murphy, Director of Water Utilities. So census water meters, water utilities currently utilizes census water meters. All meters are purchased through the contract where they're compatible with the city's current automated meter reading system, or AMR, as well as compatible with the city's advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, implementation project. This includes purchase of routine water meters, radios, radio wire, software, associated equipment necessary to retrieve meter readings from or receive meter readings from the city's water customers. The amendment will fund the purchase of census water meters and associated equipment for fiscal year 26 for a not to exceed amount of $600,000. This will amend contract 24-80 executed in August of 24. The contract has 3 extension options remaining. The Houston Galveston Area Cooperative Purchasing Program was used to execute this contract. The contract will also be funded at the same spend level for the remaining 3 extension options contingent on budget approval. And obviously, we would recommend approval of this amendment.
So the presentation didn't really quite include why we were wanting more money for this project.
Okay.
I'm just going to, I think I know the answer, but I would like for you to state that.
So when the original term of the contract was approved in 2024, it was for $385,000. And what we've determined is that $385,000 was what we owed on the 24 meter program. We had already spent $600,000, but in the term, we used the number $385,000, which was way short of what it is. It doesn't change the budget. The budget still is what it is, but what this does is it's sort of a house cleaning measure for us to get us back on track with what we actually spend per year, instead of what was originally put in the 2024 term. So our amount that we spend is somewhere between $700,000 and $900,000+ per year. And so what we're doing with this is just kind of cleaning that up. The budget still stays the same, but it allows us through the next several terms to spend what we actually need for our metering program, which is around between $700,000 and $800,000 and $900,000. Right now, we're installing our AMI program. We installed around 4,000 meters, new meters, and then we rehabilitated around 11,000 meters with the new radio system. So that's separate from this project. And so what we'll be doing on an annual basis, we typically will purchase, replace, rehabilitate some 4,000 to 5,000 meters per year. And that's what this fund allows us to do. And that includes everything that we talked about in the first slide.
So is that for only our existing meters, or does that include all of the new meters?
Are you talking about with the AMI system, or? So what this is separate from the AMI program, okay? So that's already done. That's already 99.9% complete. And we'll be coming back to council sometime in February and go over the dashboard with you on how those new meters work. What this is for future growth, because right now we're installing about 100 new meters per month, just because of new development and growth of the city. And we're also, and what this program does is it helps pay for that, but it also helps pay for meters that we are replacing due to age or because of some other reason, or if we have to go in and rehabilitate those meters, we have to test those meters, whatever really comes up, that's what this funding is for.
So the majority of our meters have already been converted?
They've all been converted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this
yeah.
is for
This-
growth and replacement
Yes, ma'am.
of problems?
That's exactly right.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
I just want to say, like, major kudos on having them all being converted.
That's
Like, I was like,
quickly.
oh, that's great news. Like, we
Yeah.
need to, like, snaps for that.
It was a huge effort, and like in our orientation that we had with you two ladies, we went over the amount of money that we were able to save by doing a lot of that work in-house.
Thank you for that.
And by having those meters as
Yeah.
well, as far as just water usage and
Yeah.
recognizing problems
It's
quickly.
going to be a great tool for our customers, for our citizens, and our commercial customers, where they can go in and see what their actual how much they're actually using on a real-time basis.
Are you ready for a motion? I'd like to move approval of item number 7.
Okay.
Second?
Second, okay. And there was a motion to approve agenda item number 7 by Dr. Harris and a second by Councilmember Zapata. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay. Motion passes.
Thank
5-1. Great. Okay, so items number 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14 was brought together. Dr. Laura Lee Harris would like to be able to combine that together. And any specific questions?
Sorry to make you get up again.
No worries.
I worry about your leg every time I see you wobble up. So these are all 5-year agreements,
2-year.
2-year agreements, okay? And we have been using these agreements.
So this is the third time around that we're doing rotation list. Our very first rotation list is from 2020 to 2022, and we're currently under 2023 to 2025 rotation list. Currently, we have 4 civil, geotechnical, property acquisition, and surveyor. Also, parks have their own rotation list. And then our engineering rotation lists are about to expire at the end of this year. That's why we released an RFQ. I'm sorry, I don't have the presentation pulled up, so I don't remember the date. That's request for qualification. So these firms that we're recommending on the item are all selected based on a very competitive process. Because the state statutory requirement prohibits city from selecting providers of professional services, including engineering, to be based on cost. And we cannot, the cost cannot be discussed during the selection process. It can only be negotiated when we have the consultant selected. Therefore, all these firms, they responded to the request for qualification and not a request for proposal, which include cost. And then we received 80 responses. And each of the rotation lists, we formed a staff committee of 5 staff that include executive team staff, that include our project managers that handle the corresponding type of projects, and also include the sponsor department that propose these type of projects, and go through the whole staff evaluation. And all the firms are scored based on 4 general areas: qualification and availability. Proposed staff, we want to look at their area of expertise. We want to look at their resumes. We want to look at their organizational chart. Third one is project experience. We asked for relevant project that respond to the scope that we proposed within the last 5 years. And also the last is project approach, that we asked them to identify potential issues they encounter, how they resolve those, and emphasize on how they will interface and communicate with the city. And these scores from all the staff panels are averaged, and then you'll see the RFQ results as a backup for each of those items. And like I said, they were selected based on a competitive process, so we meet the requirement for the RFQ,
And then after we bring them on board, what happens is we will look at our 5-year CIP, we'll look at our current projects and assign task orders. So these rotation lists are a common and effective way for municipalities to assign especially design type of projects. They're not for construction. I do want to clarify that. So for construction projects, we go out for bids. And we select them based on qualification and price. And then for the task orders, because they will be bringing in under a master service agreement, and this master service agreement outlines the terms and conditions that they agree to enter this contract with the city. So it allows us to assign a simple task order form, which reduces the amount of time to go through the whole contracting process. So this is a very quick way that we'll be able to bring somebody on board. And then you see there are varying number of firms that we recommend for each rotation list. So once they're on board, we will look at their qualification and we'll also look at the total amount of work they're being assigned to determine which firm that we're going to assign the next task order to. So that's kind of the whole process.
My concern is that I see firms on these lists that I know we've used a lot, and this is a rotation. Is there any I realize sometimes we get a company that really is outstanding. They do a great job for us. We want to hang on to them as long as possible. But is there any maximum number of years? For instance, our audits are rotated every 5 years. I would very much like to see us not have any of the financial issues with our contracts that we are seeing in some of our neighboring cities that are causing them some big grief. I would like to make sure that we minimize, and this does minimize any issues of malfeasance in many ways. But if we just kind of keep doing the same ones over and over and over, then it's not truly a rotation list. It's just 5 firms that we really like and we keep them, and that can lead to some financial issues.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Joshua Cronley. I'm the Assistant Director for Finance over the Procurement Office. You bring up some good questions, and that's some of the reasons why we've changed the model in which we're doing these rotation lists. So we're issuing them for 2 years and not for longer periods of time like 5, so that we continually will go out to the market to check to see who is interested in doing business in Kyle. Our goal is to provide a completely fair, open, and transparent process that everybody can engage in. And then we use a committee who will evaluate based on all of the metrics that Lou did a great job of summarizing, and based off of those make the awards. Now, firms that have experience in our area may tend to score higher in certain areas because they have expertise in Kyle, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a level playing field for everybody to come in and demonstrate through their basically their resume that they could do the job and do it well. And there are a few new firms on the list. There are some repeat players, but going out to the market and given the amount of interest that you see on this, which I think is a really telling and good story for Kyle, this was the largest pre-bid conference I've had in my procurement career. I've been in government for almost 15 years, and we had over 150 people attend the pre-bid conference for this meeting. So there's a great deal of interest in doing business in Kyle, and that should tell you that they recognize that there is opportunity here and that we're not looking for repeat business with just a select few. We want to do business with whoever's ready to come to the table and bring their A teams. That's also something that is identified because they identify key staff members in their resumes. So you can tell how serious a firm is in wanting to do business in your area based on the team they present.
Yeah, that doesn't quite get to the issue of could there be conflict of interest. We have no limit on how long they can stay on the rotation list.
The state does not currently regulate that.
But we could.
Well, you do have to give an equal opportunity for all, and I do understand the concerns and the points, but if a firm has done business here in the past, has worked with the city in the past, you can't disqualify them either, just because of that factor. There are things perhaps you could use in criteria that we could look at for an overall scoring metric that we could look at changing, but that hasn't been done necessarily as part of this. I think it's really tried to get the best firms that are available to do the type of work that we're looking for. And I think, as we've mentioned, there's a mixture of firms. Some of these are very large firms that would compete well probably anywhere that they would go, but some have very specific skills and qualifications for this area. I don't know if you had other comments.
I would also note that under the Public Service Procurement Act, we are required to make a determination as to who is the most qualified firm for the type of work we're doing. And so a lot of the times when you see repeat engineers, it's because they specialize in the work we need, and they are, based on our criteria, the most qualified firm to perform that.
Well, I realize that we do our purchasing very differently than some of our surrounding cities, and at a really much more professional and controlled manner, where fraud is very, very difficult to happen in the city of Kyle. But I would like to see us in the future have some evaluation of have we used this firm over and over and over and over, and maybe bring to the council, when we're looking at renewing a contract for the 8th year, why we're doing that, and have the council give a variance on it, and maybe have a standard of, we generally will only keep somebody in the rotation for 6 years, 8 years, and then they rotate off, they can come back. But that we might include in the criteria itself some exceptions, maybe, that would be brought to the council. Because I realize some of these firms are such specialized firms, and we've got a history with them, we know they do great work, but you can get in too comfortable a situation sometimes with vendors.
We can certainly give that some thought about how to do that. I think as the city attorney mentioned, the goal is to get the most qualified firm. And so if we're scoring them as the most qualified firm, it's very difficult to also come back and say, well, you're the most qualified, but then we're not going to select you because you've been here before. I don't know how we could do that. We could give it some thought about how to design some kind of a metric around that, but I could give that some thought. Councilmember, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question. I do understand the concern and the comments. I'm just trying to think about, from a procurement perspective, how to do that.
How do you operationalize that?
Councilmember Zapata.
If you want to go, Mike.
Okay. I just wanted to add something because I actually was procurement officer at the City of Austin for a couple of years, so I know a little bit about this. So there's a couple of things that we've already done to address this. One is one of the rotation lists was a small civil engineering, so not smaller scale assignments, and that was a way for us to try to get smaller firms to the table. We had to pull that item to get the backup correct, but we'll bring that back to you for consideration. Also limiting to 2 years. I mean, those are the types of things we're trying to do to, again, turn over firms and get more opportunity for more firms to be at the table. So all of those things kind of are the things that you do to kind of look at that. But also, because we'll have consulting firms that will want to meet with us sometimes and just say, hey, we'd love to do business with the City of Kyle. How do we do that? Especially if they haven't worked here. And so I will say one piece of advice I always give is partner with some of those firms that do, and be a sub-consultant on those teams and build your resume here, or look at doing work in Central Texas, and that always bodes well because that is the kind of experience we're looking for, or in that specialized area of expertise, if it's water, wastewater, or even geotechnical. Partner with firms that are doing that and build your resume. And that's also, we give that advice to firms all the time, and that's how they build that resume so they can be competitive for these rotation lists going forward. And again, I'm sure we'll have those conversations with several firms going forward. But I think to Josh's point, we had 80 firms submit for this. So, I mean, there's a lot of interest in doing work here. So we feel confident that we are going to get some of those other firms coming to the table and being on these lists in the future.
Well, it only takes one firm and one employee to make a problem. And that's what Austin has right now. One firm one employee. So I just want to make sure that we are covering our bases.
Well, we put together an evaluation committee so that you don't have the ability for one employee to weight the category, right? There are 5 members or a minimum of 5 members that are on these evaluation committees so that there isn't an ability for one individual to entirely influence the outcome of a procurement, right? So we take those measures so that we have that balanced approach for it. And we also, publish the criteria in advance, and our entire playbook, the procurement manual that the city council has passed is available on our website because we want everybody to know the rules that we're going to be applying to every situation to try to be extra transparent so that those kinds of situations cannot happen here.
Thanks, Josh. That really clarifies that whole process and shows the links we go to assure fairness. So thank you.
Councilmember Zapata.
And then I think I'm on the same coin, but opposite side. I think instead of trying to restrict or prohibit who it is that we use, is there a way for us to add additional criteria that might, for example, like, are you veteran owned? Okay, +1. Are you locally owned? +1. Or is there options for us to be able to do that? Because that might change our list, give different weight.
That would be a larger policy discussion. I think that would probably be one that maybe during the council's visioning workshop, they could discuss if that was a good plan moving forward. There are some opportunities. The state regulates some of those preferences fairly heavily, but there are certain areas that we might be able to address. And so I think if we were to look at this and understand what direction you guys wanted us to go, we could take that information and try to come back with some recommendations for some policies that may help us add additional criteria for the minority-owned, women-owned businesses or local preference or those kinds of things, if that was the direction the council wanted to go there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Amy has
Yeah.
she's biting her tongue over there.
He mostly addressed it. There are some significant limitations in state law on the preferences that we're allowed to apply. And so if we're going to put together policy, we'll want to make sure that we're complying with all of those rules.
Good. Okay. Motions?
So I would like to move approval of items 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to approve agenda items number 9, 10, 11, 13, 14 from Councilmember Dr. Harris, second by Councilmember Zapata. Is there any other discussions on these motions? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, and then I think we have one more, number 16, if you don't mind. We're gonna, it's just, I think that was mine. If you just wouldn't mind just giving a description of the removal of the slip lane, is to consider approval for the amendment of number 4 task order on the Pipe Dawson Engineering for the expedited design of efforts for the removal of the slip line and for bid construction phases on Center Street Off-System Project 2022 Road Bond Project in the amount of $413,977. Again, Mike Trimble.
Sure. So as you mentioned, Councilmember, this is for a task order for Pape Dawson for a broader scope of services, not just the removal of the slip lane. And so I do want to note that there's several things included in this amendment. The two primary items are the slip lane removal and then also bid phase and construction services, which is a substantial scope of work. There's also some additional drainage utility work associated with this, and so updating some of the sheets with some of those adjustments. All of those types of things are included in here. The slip lane itself is about $122,000 of this total amount, so I do want to note that. But with regards to the slip lane, as it was noted previously, the consultant had the slip lane in there, and that was to really address mobility at the roundabout. But it was really for long-term improvements for mobility at the roundabout. And so what it would do is actually with that slip lane, it actually helps, I know it sounds a little counterintuitive, but it actually helps mobility north and south on the other side of the roundabout by alleviating some of the backup for that right turn lane. So they're not coming to the roundabout and then entering it and turning it, the right turning movements can kind of freely move. That's a common practice and a common design element in roundabouts, is if you have a heavy movement to the right, a lot of times they'll design slip lanes. We have slip lanes on some of our other roundabouts as well that are part of the road bond program. You heard some of that when we did our roundabouts presentation, I think back in October, when we went through kind of some of the different designs. So for this one, we were fortunate to have Ravli Kosaraju, our assistant director, join our team in the spring. She is a very credentialed traffic engineer. And so we've been working with her on looking at some of the projects that we have. And so she was able to come in and then work with our Pape Dawson team to look at this particular intersection, knowing some of the concerns with the slip lane and some of the impacts to neighboring properties. So she was able to work with the Pape Dawson team and kind of dig into that a little bit more. And so what was found is that, yes, is a slip lane needed? Yes, but it's a long-term improvement. And so what we landed on is that we felt like we could move forward with removing the slip lane, not compromise mobility in the near term or the intermediate term, evaluate that roundabout, and then if we do need it in the long term, we can come back and place that slip lane in. And so the updated design would include keeping the Vibe Trail where it is and kind of leaving that opportunity for that space, but in the near term and the intermediate term, over the next 5, 10, 15 years, we can leave that buffer in, which I think also helps with some of the impacts on the neighboring properties. And so doing that analysis, we thought we'd bring this forward as looking at that option to remove the slip lane, provide that benefit to the neighboring properties, and then just continue to evaluate if we actually do need that slip lane in the long term.
Okay, so it's not going to be added, and because I believe this was the big concern that we had with those residents in that area, correct, Dr. Harris, about the cars getting too close to the houses, so now it's being removed, which is probably a good thing for some of them to feel more at ease, but then others that I heard from was trying to get an understanding why when we went through this whole process and now we're removing it and what was the purpose behind it all. So that's what it was.
Right, and so again, I think because of some of the concerns we heard about the impacts on neighboring properties, we decided to take a closer look at that. And again, having the benefit of a very experienced credentialed traffic engineer on our team, they were able to work more closely. Not that Pape Dawson did anything wrong, their analysis is very sound, but we were just able to peel it back a little bit and then determine that we did not necessarily need to move forward with that slip lane in the near term and intermediate design for the project. So we thought there'd be some benefit to proposing the option of removing that slip lane, and that's what you have as part of this task order.
So how much time would you need to be able to track that to where you might need to say, you know what, we might need to do it a lot earlier, add the lane a lot earlier? Is there going to be specific studies or specific mechanisms that you're going to be able to monitor once the roundabout gets up and running, that you're going to be able to track to say, oh, we might need to go ahead and add it now? What will be the process on that end?
Yeah, good evening, council members and Mayor Pro Tem. Ravli Kosaraju, Assistant Director of Traffic Transportation. So just to make sure I understand your question correctly, you're wanting to know what kind of KPIs and performance metrics we'd have in place to continue to monitor that specific movement we're talking about, we're adding the slip lane, and also the overall performance of the roundabout, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
because let's say years from now, we decide we need it, or a year after it's been built, we said, oh, we need it after all. Then residents are going to come out and say, wait a minute, you guys removed it, now you guys are adding it again. It might show some confusion on that end.
Absolutely, and that's for sure a valid concern because we are pretty far along the design process here. So I will say that in diving deep into the traffic analysis that was performed for that specific project and that intersection evaluation, the true need for when a dedicated space like that would be needed for turning movement would be when we start getting above a certain level of service. So that's in our slide deck, I think in the previous slide. So level of service is basically that KPI that you're referring to. That's how we would measure performance of an intersection or a specific movement. What we found in diving deep into the traffic analysis is that the level of service E or F, so those tend to be the ones that, you know, if you're in traffic, you're cringing, or you're getting the calls from the people that are cringing in traffic. At that point is when truly we would need to start looking at separating movements, because maybe that one specific movement is causing a backup through the whole roundabout circulation. So in diving, I keep saying that, in diving deep into the analysis, that need, that the level of service E or F, that was not identified till, I would say, I'm not sure about the exact year right now, but 20+ year horizon from today. So 2 decades is a very long time. Depending on the type of businesses we attract, the type of mixed use, and maybe the type of zoning decisions that you as council make over the next 2 decades are really going to define how we are going to be. Are we still going to be maybe designing for vehicles versus other modes, or are we going to be more multimodal? Basically, that's too far of a planning horizon to make a granular decision like that today. So that was the main reason behind choosing to forego that improvement. Now, I know I heard a lot of conversation today about multimodality, so I will also say that not building that slip lane today gives us that buffer that we would absolutely like to have between our non-vehicular traffic and vehicular traffic, right? So this is one of those scenarios which I think some of you mentioned in your conversations today, that are we just looking at cars, or are we looking at other modes? This was really weighing the pros and cons of prioritizing one mode or another. At this point, based on the traffic analysis and the projections of when that specific turn lane is required, we as staff felt that it was important to prioritize the non-vehicular modes today, and then down the road continue monitoring the performance of the overall roundabout and that specific movement. And if, like the analysis is predicting, in 20 years from now, if that's still a need, then we evaluate how best to accomplish that at that point. But try not to penalize the non-vehicular modes today in building something for basically the car that's needed 20 years from now, right? So that was kind of and I mean, I've been here 7 months, so I wish I could have done this long time ago, so we would have avoided this conversation with y'all today, but that's just how it worked out.
We're at.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for explaining that. Yes, Dr. Harris.
I appreciate the emphasis on the non-vehicle because Wallace Middle School's right there, and those kids will bike and walk, and protecting their safety is really paramount. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? Any motions? I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve agenda item number 16.
Second.
Second by Councilmember McKinney. Any discussions on that item? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Motion passes. And one more on the consent number 17. Consider approval of a resolution for the City Council, City of Kyle, Texas, approving, authorizing the execution of a reimbursement agreement relating to the Limestone Creek Public Improvement District and resolving other matters needed. I believe this was Councilmember Zapata.
Yes, and you don't have to go through the whole presentation. I think I'm more just asking for a procedural breakdown of how this works, because I'm also learning it as I go along. So I think if you wanted to go through the presentation, you could, but I don't think you have to.
Sure. So, good evening, Stephanie Leiby with Norton Rose Fulbright. Our firm services bond counsel to the city. So we're bringing the reimbursement resolution the reimbursement agreement to you all this evening for approval. It's contemplated with Limestone Creek Public Improvement District. The city previously issued bonds for improvement area number 1. The developer is going to be coming forth in 2026 with a request for a bond issuance for improvement area number 2 as the development continues to build out. In conjunction with that new improvement area, there are public improvements that are going to be dedicated to the city. That dedication is scheduled to occur before we come in for the bond issuance. And so we're putting this reimbursement agreement in place just to memorialize the agreement between the city and the developer before those improvements are dedicated. The agreement itself is drafted so that any payment obligations of the city are contingent on that future assessment levy. So if those assessments are not levied, then the reimbursement agreement does not become effective.
Okay, and I think that was generally the question that I had, is that we're, I guess,
initiating this now, one, because we can't provide the reimbursement until we have this agreement in place. And then two, isn't this actually kind of a good thing that we're getting these improvements ahead of time? So I think I also just wanted to acknowledge that as well. And those are all the questions I had.
Okay.
So I guess a motion to approve item number 17.
All right, second. Okay, motion was made to approve agenda item number 17 by Councilmember Zapata, approved by myself. Is there any discussion on this item?
Brian had a comment.
Brian, you had a comment, sir?
I think I think as we were kind of mincing over the words, reimbursement resolution is also a concept you see sometimes in how we issue bonds, is you're asking for to be able to count some of those costs and be able to reimburse them during the bond issuance. That's essentially the process. So you're going to see some of those things for a reimbursement resolution with bonds that we're looking at, just so those costs are eligible to be issued in the bonds. That's essentially what it is.
So this is kind of standard now for most of our developments.
This will be standard for developments for public improvement districts when we have a developer that's ready to convey the public improvements to the city before they are ready for the bond issuance.
So this is one of our ways of assuring that the infrastructure is there before all of the development goes in.
Correct.
Right, and the developer wants to make sure they get credit for those costs in the
Right.
PID issuance.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Those want to approve it, say aye.
Aye.
Those deny. Okay. Motion passes. All right. We're on to the last agenda item of the night. Let's go to agenda item number 22. This is a first reading. Consider approval of an ordinance to rezone approximately 0.2 acres of RS Retail Services to CBD2 Central Business District 2 for lots 8 and 9, Block B of the original Town of Kyle subdivision located on 201 and 203 South Old Highway 81, Hays County, Texas, planning and zoning. This does require a public hearing, and we have Kayla Sharp, Senior Planning, to present. Thank you.
All right, good evening, Council. Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner. I'll go ahead and run through my presentation really quick, and then we can do the public hearing after, followed by questions. So tonight we have a zoning request for 201 and 203 South Old Highway 81. The applicant is requesting to rezone both parcels from retail services to Central Business District 2, and the properties are part of the original Town of Kyle. Just to kind of broad overview, the RS zoning district is typically intended for larger developments. Think your HEBs, Targets, Walmarts, things like that. And the CBD2 zoning district is primarily used in the city's downtown or original town area, and it is more suitable for infill and redevelopment within those areas. The CBD2 zoning allows for some commercial and office uses and limited residential uses. I do want to point out that the properties are also in the I-35 and Old Highway 81 overlay districts. Per our future land use plan, the properties are in the regional commercial future land use district, which would support commercial and mixed use zoning districts. Staff has reviewed the request and has determined the requested zoning to be appropriate. The CBD2 zoning will allow greater flexibility for future development. Staff recommends approval of the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval as well. Your options here tonight are to approve as presented, approve with modifications, or deny the request.
Okay, this item requests a public hearing. If there's anybody that would like to come and speak on behalf of this item, you're welcome to come up. Okay, please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Flores-Cal, and I have some concerns about turning this area into CBD2. I fought really hard for the house that sits right next to it, and it's on Highway 80. That house is considered still a home, and they plan on using it as a home for future use. I think CBD2 is a great idea in some areas. I'm not so sure about this one. I will say I would like each and every one of you guys to consider all the options in CBD2, as once you rezone it, there is no going back. They can put anything they want that falls underneath that category in that area. I watched the planning and zoning meeting, and there was some concerns from the commissioners on that board. And hopefully you guys watched it as well, and you would realize that there are things that fall under CBD2 that those commissioners did not want. And so I'm going to ask you as you move forward, if you don't understand what falls under that category, that you ask the staff, and maybe next time in the future, the staff can place that in the backup material so everybody, including the residents, are a little bit more aware of what falls into that category. So with that, I ask that you take into consideration the homeowner right next to it, which was at the planning and zoning meeting, and the categories that can fall underneath it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak? Okay. Anybody have any questions or references? Dr. Harris.
So it looks like this is for 2 lots only, not for the whole area.
Correct.
So I assume that this request is for a particular business.
Yes, so typically from, staff perspective, when we're considering what we would consider a straight zoning, we're looking at, all of the potential uses that are allowed in that zoning district. However, the applicant did disclose at the Planning and Zoning Commission last week that the intent is for it to be like a cafe, coffee shop type use.
So that has been proposed before, right? That's not the first time we've heard that that's a potential for these lots.
It's the first time an actual application has been submitted. There might have been some talks in the
About
past.
it. Okay. Can we make the rezoning contingent upon their starting the project? Is that possible to do?
The zoning would have to be in place in order for them to move forward. Otherwise, it would have to, like a site development permit, when you're looking at setbacks, parking requirements, things like that are typically based on the zoning. So we would need to have a zoning in place before they could move forward.
I was just going to say, zoning wise, this is a more restrictive district than the retail services is. So if you're looking on a zoning use chart and the categories of uses and allowances that can be in that, CB2 is more restricted, allows less uses than the current retail services district. But Kayla's correct. Really, why CB2 works in this case is because the lot sizes and shapes really support setbacks that would work in conformance kind of with that setback. And we did have the neighbor comment to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and there are some residential uses in that area. The current zoning of retail services as well as CBD2, if that area did change zoning, would not restrict residential uses and those existing residential uses, but it would remain the same as kind of the current situation there now. The current area is zoned to commercial already with some residential uses that are currently
So this
there.
is right across the street from Pisces?
More
correct. It's down
on the same side of the street, but down a little bit.
There's the tire shop, and then across the street from the tire shop is these 2 parcels, and then Pisces is a little further south.
Okay. Yeah. Just it's in my head, right? Thank you.
Is there any conversation that was brought up, again, perfect point about the parking? Because again, you don't want to get into a situation like we had with the barbecue place to where they decide to have a specific type of business there. Like you said, I think it was going to be like a coffee shop, but they're going to also have specific requirements to have specific parking, including the handicap. Was any of those conversations brought up during the planning and zoning on that end, or what was their whole market plan for this area, for this use?
Yeah, I think they did have some concerns about ensuring that there was adequate parking. That's something that we do look at with the site development permit is, based on, it's kind of dual factor. Some of it's solely based on zoning and some of it's also kind of the specific use. So when you have like restaurants, coffee shops, things like that, they might require a little bit more parking than some other retail type uses. So that's something that will be looked at the site development permit. To make sure, based on their square footage and everything like that, they have the appropriate number of parking spaces on site.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Councilman Tobias, did we, I don't recall you
Oh, I
closing
need
the
to
public
close.
hearing.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go ahead and close public hearing. Forgot about that. Not the- Okay. Do we have any motions?
Move approval of item number 22.
Okay. A motion was made for Dr. Harris to approve agenda item number 22. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Zapata. Okay, any discussion on this item? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those approved, disapproved? Okay. Item passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that is it. Do we make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
All right, second. Meeting's over. Merry Christmas, everybody.